Chapter 424. The night was hazy, the candlelight was swaying, the breeze was intoxicating, and the beauty was as pretty as jade. If it was someone else, they would definitely agree. She didn't even have to say it. They would want to kneel down and lick her feet. Luli was not that kind of person. Instead, he hated it. He was influenced by Lu Ling since he was a kid. To him, a woman should know how to be reserved and love herself. If a woman didn't love herself, how could a man love her? Men liked sluts, but they only liked her body, not her as a person. Luli thought Jiang Qiling had changed a lot. He still saw her as a friend. He felt sorry for her when he saw her sitting on the cliff all by herself. But at this moment, he was angry. He hated her for not fighting for him, hated her for lowering herself. Luli pulled a long face. He looked at her coldly and said, "Lady Qi, if you are still like this, please forgive me. You are no longer my friend. I will not ask for your help anymore. I will leave now." It had been some time since Luli became the emperor of the northern desert. He had changed his position and temperament. He had the power of an emperor. He was so angry that even Jiang Qiling was frightened. Seeing that Luli was about to fly out, she panicked. Tears ran down her cheeks. She grabbed Lu Li's robe, looked up and said with grievance, "What are you thinking? I am not asking you to do anything. I just want you to spend the night with me. Just sit on the side. Lu Li, don't go. I am afraid. I am afraid of the night. I am really afraid. I can't sleep every night. Every night, I feel like he has turned into a ghost and is coming for my life, telling me that he died a wrong death. I am so scared." Lu Li was taken aback. He looked back at the tearful face, the wronged expression, the begging eyes. His heart softened. Seeing that Lu Li was calming down, Jiang Qiling continued to beg, "Really, Lu Li? We don't have to do anything. I just want to have a good sleep. Can you stay with me? I have never had a good sleep for so many years. Can you go after I fall asleep? I am really scared." Lu Li's heart melted. He had wronged Jiang Qiling. Seeing the fear in her eyes, he felt sorry for her again. Jiang Qiling had covered herself with thorns, but she was actually very fragile, more fragile than most girls. As far as Lu Li was concerned, she was no longer a young lady of the Jiang family standing high above the masses. She was no longer a talented genius or a wanton slut. She was just a poor little girl who was afraid of the dark night. "All right." Lu Li squatted down and sat on the deck. He patted her back and said, "I will stay here tonight. I will stay with you. Go to sleep." Jiang Qiling put her arms around Lu Li's waist and leaned on his leg. She looked at Lu Li with tears in her eyes, and Lu Li looked back at her quietly. They didn't say anything, but there was no romantic atmosphere in the boat. There was only peace and quiet. Lu Li patted her back and hair. Soon, she fell asleep. She slept peacefully and sweetly. There were still some tear stains on her face, but there was a smile on her face. Lu Li didn't leave. He sat with his legs crossed and his eyes closed the whole night. Jiang Qiling woke up 3 times in the middle of the night. Every time, she would be sweating and her eyes were filled with fear. But she would sleep again after she saw Lu Li. Lu Li's heart ached more and more. He began to hate the Jiang family patriarch. How cruel could her father be? How could he force his own daughter into such a state? Lu Li was ready to leave after a night of cultivation. When Jiang Qiling woke up, she would have to pester him for a whole day. There were many things to deal with at the northern desert. He had to go back and make arrangements. He put Jiang Qiling on the bed, took out a blanket from his interspatial ring, and covered her up gently. Then, he walked out quietly after he looked at Jiang Qiling, who was sleeping peacefully. When Lu Li walked out of the cabin, Jiang Qiling, who had been sleeping with her eyes closed, suddenly opened her eyes. She looked at Lu Li's back, put on a sweet smile and went back to sleep. Outside the cabin, Lu Li stood on the deck and waved to Jiang Hong, who was in the distance. Jiang Hong drove another boat over. Lu Li boarded and asked Jiang Hong to take him away. Young Master Lu, last night, after the ship sailed away, Jiang Hong asked Lu Li with a cold face. Lu Li waved his hand and said, "We didn't do anything. We just drank all night." Oh, Jiang Hong was relieved. Last night, many powerful psychic powers checked into the boat. If Lu Li had done something, he would be dead at the Lake of Delicacy. When the boat arrived at the dock, Jiang Hong walked out with Lu Li and the others. Walking along the pier for a few steps, Jiang Hong suddenly saw a person fishing by the lake in front of him. After seeing this person, Jiang Hong's expression changed. That person glanced at him indifferently, and Jiang Hong immediately shut up. Lu Li and Mingyu looked over. It was an elegant middle-aged man. He was handsome and his eyes were profound, as if they could not be read. More importantly, this man's qi and energy were powerful. Lu Li and Mingyu could not tell his realm. He was at the human sovereign realm. Jiang Hong asked this young man to come and sit with me. You wait outside. The middle-aged man said lightly. Jiang Hong hurriedly bowed. Lu Li looked at Mingyu, waved his hand after some thoughts. Mingyu left with Jiang Hong. Young man, come and sit. The middle-aged man waved his hand and pointed to a stone stool next to him. Lu Li walked over after some thoughts. He didn't salute and just sat down quietly. He didn't look at the middle-aged man. Instead, he looked at the lake in the distance. The middle-aged man didn't say anything. He just stared at the fishing rod. After a while, a fish bit. He pulled the rod and a fat carp was hooked. He took the fish off the hook and threw it back into the lake. Then he looked at Lu Li with a smile and said, "Young man, why don't you say anything? You don't salute me. You are brave." Ha ha. Lu Li smiled lightly. He looked at the middle-aged man in a neither servile nor overbearing manner and said, "I have always been brave. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been exiled from the Lu family. Master, you don't look like a man who cares about formalities. Why do you still want me to bow to you?" The middle-aged man smiled and asked, "How did you know who I am? Have you seen my portrait before?" "No." Lu Li shook his head and said, "Apart from the master of the Pavilion of Delicacy, who else would care about Lady Qi so much? Master, you are so young. You are not old enough to fish. You are sitting here early in the morning. Of course, you are here to fish for me. You are smart." The middle-aged man nodded. Then he looked at the boat in the distance and said calmly, "But smart people usually die early. If smart people want to live longer, they should learn to hide their weaknesses instead of using petty tricks. You are not a good match for Linger. Don't try to use her to get ahead. You are a disciple of the Lu family. The Pavilion of Delicacy cannot let go of you." Ha ha ha. Lu Li laughed. He looked at the middle-aged man with ridicule and said, "Last night, I was wondering what kind of person the master of the Pavilion of Delicacy was. Today I am disappointed. I don't know if you can be a successful master or not. But I am sure of one thing. As a father, you are a failure." The master of the Pavilion of Delicacy looked at Lu Li. Her eyes were as sharp as knives. A surge of qi and energy pressed down on Lu Li. Lu Li's bones were creaking at once. At this moment, Lu Li had no doubt that he would be smashed into a pile of minced meat soon if the qi and energy continued to press down on him. P.S. That's the 5th chapter. I have been doing this for several days. I have paid back the chapters 1-0. Of course, old monster Zhou will continue to erupt. I will definitely do what I promised you. Chapter 425. Lu Li was not afraid at all. Instead, he stared at Jiang Hua, the master of the Pavilion of Delicacy coldly, like a lion with its mane raised. He knew very well that Jiang Hua wouldn't dare to kill him, at least not in public. That would damage his reputation as the master of the Pavilion of Delicacy. As he had expected, soon, Jiang Hua's momentum weakened. Lu Li's bones were cracking and he was about to spit out some blood from his throat. But he forced himself not to. He still stared at Jiang Hua coldly. After the time for more than a dozen breaths, Jiang Wua's breaths weakened. He said indifferently, "Son of Lu Renhuang, you really have the temperament of a tiger. But punk, how long have you lived? How dare you teach me a lesson?" Lu Li forced himself to swallow the blood. He took a deep breath and answered back, "I don't have the guts to teach you a lesson. But every child is like a blank piece of paper. The growth of a child has much to do with his or her parent. Does it have nothing to do with you that Jiang Qiling is like this? Last night, Jiang Qiling told me that she hasn't had a good sleep for years. Every night, she would be afraid that someone would come after her. Even when I was with her last night, she woke up from her nightmares 3 times. Even I feel sorry for her. As a father, don't you feel guilty or sorry for her?" At the Gargoyle Mountain, her grandpa passed away. She had nothing to live for. When she was about to commit suicide, I gave her hope. I gave her something to live for. It is funny. Her only hope now is for you to kneel in front of his grave so that her grandpa can be worshipped by the people. The reason why she cultivated so desperately was for these 2 goals. Pavilion Master, is this what you want by forcing your daughter into this state? Lu Li didn't show any mercy. He didn't want to save Jiang Wua any face. Last night, seeing how Jiang Qiling was like, Lu Li hated Jiang Wua. Now that he knew Jiang Wua wouldn't kill him, he wouldn't show any mercy. Jiang Wua's expressions were strange. He wasn't angry that a junior like Lu Li was scolding him. Instead, he had mixed feelings. He stared at the boat in the distance. After a while, he sighed and said, "You are right. I am qualified as a master. But as a father, I have failed. After Linger was born, her mother passed away. I focused on developing the Pavilion of Delicacy and neglected to discipline her. This is all my fault." But Jiang Wua turned to Lu Li and said, "No matter what, you cannot be with Linger. Your identity is too sensitive. I don't want Ling to be hurt again. So you better be sensible and don't make things difficult for me. Otherwise, you know what will happen." "You are wrong again." Lu Li shook his head and sighed. "I have no interest in your daughter. If I did, why would I wait until now? We've been together since we were at the Heavenly Ghost Mountain. We are just ordinary friends. Don't think that I want to be the son-in-law of the Jiang family. I betrayed the Lu family. Jiang Qiling once invited me to join the Pavilion of Delicacy, but I refused. Later on, she said that she would help me set up a domain in the northern part of the Central Plains, but I refused. My grandpa is Lu Jingyang and my father is Lu Renhuang. Do you think that I, Lu Li, am a man who sponges off women? I don't need to rely on anyone. I can build a new Lu family by myself." "Ha ha ha!" Jiang Wua laughed. He was amused by Lu Li's words. He nodded and said, "Good, good. You are ambitious. You do resemble Lu Renhuang. Now that you have said so, I will not ask further. But if I ever find out that you and Linger have crossed the border, then don't blame me for being cruel. Take care." With that said, Jiang Wua vanished on the spot. Lu Li was shocked. He must be at the Earth Immortal Realm if he could vanish into thin air. The master of the Pavilion of Delicacy must be at least at the Earth Immortal Realm. How old was Jiang Wua? But Lu Li heard that Jiang Wua used to be obsessed with martial arts and married late. He must be old. It was hard to tell a warrior's age from his appearance. If a warrior was at a high realm when he was young, then it would be hard for him to age. After all, he could live for so long. Lu Li stood by the lake for a while and then left. Jiang Hong and Ming Yu were waiting outside. They were relieved to see that Lu Li was fine. Jiang Hong didn't dare to stay with Lu Li any longer. He took Lu Li to the city at once. Lu Li teleported away because he was worried about the northern desert. Lu Li teleported back to the northern desert after he arrived at the Cloud City. Lu Li hurried to the Imperial Palace and saw Madame Yin and Yu Huashan. Yu Huashan was called over by Madame Yin. They were going to work together. Yu Huashan asked about the situation as Lu Li came back. Lu Li explained that the Pavilion of Delicacy would help. But the northern Central Plains was a vast place with a sea of people. The Pavilion of Delicacy might not be able to find them. What was more, it was not Jiang Wuo who gave the order. The Pavilion of Delicacy would not do their best. Lu Li had thought it through on his way back. He ordered many scouts to go to the sea at the south. As long as there was no danger, there would be some buffer time when the Song family patriarch came. Lu Li asked Madame Yen and Yu Huashan to handle the matter. He went to see Lu Feishua first, but he didn't say much. He just told her that the Pavilion of Delicacy would get involved and not to worry. After saying goodbye to Lu Feishua, Lu Li arrived at a side chamber and shouted, "Clan leader Yi." A gentle breeze came and Yi Cha appeared. Lu Li asked, "How long will it take for the mammoth race to make the breakthrough?" "Half a month." Yi Cha thought about it and said, "Half a year is almost up. They should be able to make the breakthrough soon." "Young master, should I send someone back to check?" "Okay." Lu Li nodded and said, "Once they make the breakthrough, tell them to come out at once. Send them to the small world of green dwarfs secretly. Do not let anyone know." Yes. Yi Cha knew the severity of the situation. The Cyan Phoenix race looked like humans. They could disguise themselves and others wouldn't be able to tell. But the mammoth race were giant. Once they were exposed, they would not be able to keep the secret. By then, the 6 forces including the Samsara Palace would come to the northern desert and they would all die. Yi Cha left and Lu Li was ready to cultivate. He hadn't made much progress on the speed profound meaning yet. He didn't dare to leave the Ling Empress city, so he had to reach the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm first. Rustle, 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 from outside came a sound of footsteps. A slim girl came in. The cinnabar dot between her eyebrows was eye-catching. It was Bai Qiushue. Lu Li felt embarrassed. He pretended to be in deep thoughts with his eyebrows knitted. Bai Qiushue walked over, sat next to Lu Li and asked, "Is it troublesome?" Bai Qiushue went to ask Madame Yen after she learned that Lu Li was back. But Madame Yen said nothing. Such a big matter must be kept secret or it would cause panic. Lu Li looked up and said with a grin, "It's okay. I am here. The sky won't fall." Bai Qiushue forced a smile. She grabbed Lu Li's arm and said softly, "I don't care if the sky is falling or not. I only care about you because you are our sky." For the first time, Bai Qiushue said some sweet words. Lu Li was touched even though he was blushing and shy. Chapter 426. They looked into each other's eyes, never to be apart again. This time, Bai Qiushue had expressed her feelings boldly. As a matter of fact, back at the Heaven Martial Kingdom, when Bai Qiushue risked everything to save Lu Li, she already had some vague feelings for him. In the deserted world, when Lu Li brought all the powerful warriors of the northern desert to save her, she fell in love with him. What more could she ask for in this lifetime when she had a lover like him? Bai Qiushue had thought things through during the 2 months she had been back at the Ling Empress city. Therefore, she had the courage to express her feelings now. Lu Li smiled. He felt his heart was full and his fighting spirit was aroused. He was not alone now. He had so many people behind him. No matter how tough the situation was, he must get through it. He must be the pillar for Bai Qiushue and the others. Both of them were touched. They hugged each other without knowing it. Of course, Lu Li didn't do anything rash this time. He just hugged Bai Qiushue gently. They listened to each other's heartbeat and felt the strong love from each other. "Sister, sister," from outside came an untimely voice. Lu Li's expressions changed. He jumped up at once and walked to the side chamber. He said, "I will cultivate to reach the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm. We will talk when I come out." Bai Qiushue burst into laughter, looking at Lu Li who was running away. Bai Xiaoshuang had become Lu Li's nemesis now. Bai Xiaoshuang rushed in. She looked around and said angrily, "Didn't you say that Lu Li is back? Where is he? Lu Li, come out. I will kill you. I will kill you." Luli had rushed out of the side chamber and was ready to cultivate in the secret room. He shuddered to hear the murderous voice. He wasn't afraid that Bai Xiaoshuang would kill him. What he was afraid of was that the girl would speak her mind. What would happen to his dignity if word got out? Cultivation, cultivation. I will not come out until I reach the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm. Luli secretly made up his mind. He had already arranged everything that needed to be done. The rest was up to luck. If he was lucky, the Pavilion of Delicacy would find the Song family patriarch and kill them. If he was unlucky, the Song family patriarch would come to the northern desert. The scouts he sent out could find the four. More importantly, he still had time because there was a vast sea between the central plains and the northern desert. By iron-armored ships, it would take at least 2 to 3 months, unless the Song family patriarch came by himself at top speed. What's more, there were many powerful mystical beasts in the sea. There were also many beast sovereigns. The 4 of them might even be killed by the mystical beasts in the sea. Therefore, Luli still had time. At this rate, he could reach the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm in half a month at most. By that time, the leader of the mammoth race would have already gone to the small world of the green dwarfs, and he would be able to conquer the deserted world. Do your best and leave the rest to the heavens. Luli closed the door, took out pellets and soul crystals to consume. His temperament was very good, and he quickly got rid of the distracting thoughts in his mind and focused on cultivating. Under her order, the patriarchs of the Intelligence Division had to send out many people to search for the Song family patriarch all over the world. The patriarch of the Intelligence Department of the Jiang family was experienced, and he was at the human sovereign realm. He was highly respected at the Pavilion of Delicacy. But there was nothing he could do about Jiang Qiling. This young lady was schizophrenic. When she was in a good mood, she was well-behaved. But when she was mad, she could do anything. She once burned down the yard of the Hall of Patriarchs. If they didn't listen to her, she might burn down the house of the patriarch as well. It would be fine if she was just a disciple of an average family. It just so happened that Jiang Qiling was talented, and she was the only daughter of Jiang Hua. Who dared to offend her? As long as she didn't cross the line, they had to listen to her. Many scouts of the Pavilion of Delicacy were sent out. At the same time, the Du family, the Palace of Peaceful Heavens and other families received Jiang Qiling's order. Jiang Hong went to deliver it in person. Which family dared to offend the little devil that even patriarchs of the Jiang family dared not to offend? Or else, Jiang Qiling would burn down their yards the next second. For a moment, many people of the Central Plains and the Northern Desert were sent out to search for the Song family patriarch, Song Qi and the other 3. Conservatively speaking, more than 1 million scouts were sent out. It was not difficult for so many people to search for 4 people, one of whom was at the human sovereign realm. In merely 8 days the result came out. Song Qi and the other 3 were found. However, after Song Qi was found, the scouts were also discovered by Song Qi and the others. Several scouts were taken down. Song Qi interrogated them and learned that the Pavilion of Delicacy was looking for him. Song Qi and the others ran away at once. Jiang Qiling asked 2 patriarchs to hunt them down when she learned the news. They caught up with the 4 near the LV city. But the 3 noble Lord Realm warriors of the Song family fought with their lives. Song Qi managed to escape into a perilous place at the north of the Central Plains. Not even human sovereign realm warriors dared to enter that perilous place. Patriarchs of the Jiang family would not risk their lives for Luli. Only some scouts were left outside the perilous place, and the patriarchs went back. Jiang Qiling knew this was the best she could do. She asked Jiang Hong to send a message to Luli while she was busy recovering and preparing to reach the Noble Lord realm. Even though there was a difference of 1 realm between the Eternal Realm and the Noble Lord realm, their abilities were worlds apart. The Xian Wu realm, Spirit Sea realm and Soul Pond realm were all about building the foundation. The Fate Wheel Realm and the Eternal Realm were about to change their destinies. But the Noble Lord Realm was about to go against nature. The first three realms were children. The Fate Wheel Realm and the Eternal Realm were teenagers. The Noble Lord Realm was a young man. If she could reach the human sovereign realm, she would be in the prime of her life. Whether a warrior could reach the Noble Lord Realm or not was crucial. Once Jiang Qiling reached the Noble Lord Realm, her family would train her at all costs. She could reach the Noble Lord Realm at such a young age, and she could reach the human sovereign realm or the earth immortal realm. Jiang Qiling understood this, so she cultivated hard. She wanted to go to the northern desert to look for Luli, but she resisted the urge. She planned to reach the Noble Lord Realm first. Luli must have a lot of things to deal with. When the news of Song Qi reached the northern desert, Luli and the others were a bit disappointed, but they were relieved. Song Qi might not be able to come out after he went in. Even if he did, there were so many scouts outside and he would be found out. At least, the northern desert was safe for the time being. 20 days later. From the crater of the Earth Dragon Island, 3 huge figures shot out from the crater. Yi Cha stood outside the volcano. Seeing the first golden giant, he grinned and said, "Mengji, you finally made the breakthrough." The 3 golden giants' eyes were filled with excitement. The golden giant at the front stretched his muscles and bones, making cracking sounds. He grinned and said in a muffled voice, "It has been more than 5,000 years. The mammoth race has finally seen the light of day again. Perhaps the world has forgotten about the mammoth race, right?" "Ha ha ha." Yi Cha laughed and said with relief, "Mengji, as long as we follow Saint Lord wholeheartedly, we will kill our way back to the Central Plains and take back our ancestral land. We will make the entire great land tremble under our feet." "Okay." Mengji nodded. Then he raised his head and shouted. He grinned and said, "Kill our way back to the Central Plains, take back our ancestral land and restore our glory. For this goal, the mammoth race is willing to go through fire and water. Death is not to be regretted." "Okay, stop shouting." Chapter 427. 3 warriors of the mammoth race had reached the Noble Lord Realm, but Luli didn't leave right away. Instead, he was in closed-door cultivation. He was trying to reach the middle stage of the Fate Wheel Realm. It had been more than half a year since he reached the Fate Wheel Realm and his realm was stable. He had been consuming pellets of delicacy and soul crystals, strengthening his Xian energy and soul pond. He was ready to build the second Fate Wheel now. The mystical materials were prepared so Luli didn't have to worry about them. This time, the mystical materials were of the highest level. Luli even got 3 heaven serpent fruit. The second Fate Wheel was built in the same way as the first one. The only difference was that, after the second Fate Wheel was built, it had to be integrated with the first one to form a 2-layered one. If it couldn't be integrated, the second Fate Wheel would collapse. Luli asked Mingyu to protect him and nobody was allowed to get close while he started to build the Fate Wheel. He was using the secret method of the Lu family. Even though he was no longer a disciple of the Lu family, the secret method was still useful. The strength and speed of his first Fate Wheel were much stronger than regular Fate Wheels. 7 days. After 7 days, Luli built the second Fate Wheel as expected. He was talented and the son of Lu Renhuang couldn't be any worse. The mystical materials used were of the highest level, and so was the secret method. It was not a problem for him to build the second Fate Wheel. The problem was the integration with the first Fate Wheel. When the second Fate Wheel was built, Luli noticed something was wrong. The second Fate Wheel was 7-colored. But the first Fate Wheel was silver, which looked out of place. Luli was worried that the 2 Fate Wheels would reject each other and the integration would fail. His worry was unnecessary. The integration of the 2 Fate Wheels was successful. However, after the fusion, he was a little surprised. After the fusion, the second Fate Wheel turned silver. The silver dragon pattern moved again and appeared on the second Fate Wheel, This was strange. Unfortunately, Luli didn't have the courage to ask anyone. He had to study it himself. He spent a day in the secret room but didn't find anything. Let's go out and have a try. Luli decided to try. He put away the two-layered fate wheel and walked out. Mingyu was sitting at the door with his legs crossed. Seeing Luli, Mingyu's eyes glowed and he said, "Young master, congratulations." "What's there to congratulate?" Luli didn't care. He had consumed so many top-level pellets and mystical materials. If he still couldn't reach the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm, then he wouldn't need to cultivate in the future. It would be a waste of mystical materials and Xian crystals. "I'm going to try the new Fate Wheel," Luli said, and Mingyu followed him out of curiosity. They walked out. Luli released his Fate Wheel and flew into it. Then, he controlled the Fate Wheel to fly into the sky in a blur. So fast. Even though Mingyu was prepared for this, he was still taken aback. Luli's speed had increased by several times. Based on Mingyu's estimation, Luli's speed was comparable to a warrior at the middle stage of the Eternal Realm. He was at the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm, but he was as fast as the middle stage of the Eternal Realm? Even though Luli had learned the speed profound meaning, he didn't know how to enhance his abilities and speed. The only explanation was that Luli's Fate Wheel was different from others. Looking at Luli's two-layered Fate Wheel, which was glowing in silver light, Mingyu understood that it was bigger than other warriors. Naturally, Luli's Fate Wheel was different from that of others. Others didn't have silver Fate Wheels and they weren't as big. As far as Mingyu could tell, Luli must have learned some secret skills of the Lu family. As one of the 12 royal families, it was normal for the Lu family to have something special. Mingyu could understand it, but others couldn't. People were not allowed to fly at the Ling Empress city. Luli's flying attracted many people's attention. When people saw that it was Luli, they burst into an uproar. Seeing how fast Luli was, the uproar became louder. Good. I am much faster. My Fate Wheel is strange but it is not bad." Luli glided in the air in strange arcs. He was excited. Speed was also a part of his strength. If he could use the speed ultimacy in it, his speed would be many times faster. "Luli, you coward. You finally dare to come out? Get down here." Luli was having fun flying in the air, and he even made many difficult moves. However, he was startled by a girl's shout. He trembled and almost fell from the sky. Whoosh! Luli's expressions changed when he saw a person flying up with a huge machete in her hand. Pushing his speed to the limit, he flew down like a wisp of smoke, rushing into a side hall and disappearing. Many people stared at Bai Xiaoshuang, who was fuming in midair. They were eager for gossip. An emperor who could kill without batting an eyelid was forced into hiding by this Bai Xiaoshuang. Was there some secret between the two? "Shuanger, get down here!" Madame Yen shouted in anger. Bai Xiaoshuang could be forgiven for fooling around, but how dare she chase after Luli in public? This would damage Luli's dignity as an emperor. The Bai family depended on Luli. Bai Xiaoshuang flew down, feeling wronged. But she didn't say anything to Madame Yen. She pouted and almost cried. Luckily, Bai Qiuxue came out and pulled Bai Xiaoshuang away. She comforted her and whispered something to her ear. Bai Xiaoshuang finally smiled through her tears. Bai Qiuxue sent Bai Xiaoshuang back to her palace, and then went to Luli's palace. She knocked on the door and heard Luli's alarmed voice. "Who is it?" "It's me." "Shuanger is not here." Bai Qiuxue giggled and said. Luli opened the door, relieved. He dragged Bai Qiuxue in and closed the door in a flash. Seeing Luli like this, Bai Qiuxue bent over from laughter. She put on a mischievous smile. "Well, how dare you laugh at me? I will punish you." Luli flew into a rage. He carried Bai Qiuxue in his arms and walked towards the big bed inside. Bai Qiuxue was in a panic. She struggled but Luli threw her onto the bed. Like a tiger pouncing on a sheep, she was pinned down on the bed. Bai Qiuxue was even more panicked. She looked at Lu Li and begged, "Okay, Emperor, I am sorry. Please forgive me this time." Lu Li's heart was beating faster and his breaths shortened. He could feel the softness and smoothness of her body, smell her orchid-like breath, and look at her shy and beautiful face. He looked at Bai Qiuxue and said, "You have made a mistake. How can I not punish you? I want you to stay still and let me kiss you 3 times. With that said, Lu Li put his mouth on Bai Qiuxue's tender and red lips in a flash. He pried open her mouth in a domineering way and sucked the bejeweled juice out of her mouth like crazy. Feeling Lu Li's dominance and love, as well as his strong masculinity, Bai Qiuxue was lost as well. Her mind went blank. But soon, she came back to her senses. She pushed Lu Li away and said in panic, "No, Shuang'er is nearby." Lu Li's eyes became clear and his face was as bitter as a gourd. He was lost in thought for a long time. Then he said in frustration, "Qiuxue, I have just reached the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm. I will go and cultivate now. When Bai Xiaoshuang comes, tell her I am not here. Wait." Seeing that Lu Li was about to run, Bai Qiuxue remembered her purpose here. She said, "I just told Shuang'er that she has been eyeing a heaven-grade emerald jade armor for a long time. My aunt wouldn't buy it for her. If you can give it to her, I will let bygones be bygones." "Yes." Chapter 428. Lu Li didn't go to the area of demons right away after he reached the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm. He needed to cultivate and stabilize his realm. He planned to stay in the Ling Empress City for 10 days. Firstly, he wanted to accompany Lu Feixue. Secondly, he wanted to improve his relationship with Autumn Snow. Thirdly, he wanted to stabilize his realm. He asked Madame Yen to buy a piece of jade armor for Bai Xiaoshuang at the auction house. Finally, Bai Xiaoshuang let it go. However, his plan to spend time alone with Bai Qiuxue to improve their relationship didn't work out. This was because Bai Xiaoshuang kept popping up and interrupting their date. More importantly, Lu Li didn't dare to touch Bai Qiuxue during the date because she would sense it as soon as he did. Lu Li could only keep his distance from her. They expressed their love for each other through their eyes. Lu Li had thought about taking Bai Xiaoshuang into his harem as well. It was normal for an emperor of the northern desert to have several concubines. However, he was deeply influenced by Lu Ling. If he didn't have feelings for her, he wouldn't force her to marry him. It was just like how Zilian often looked at him with passionate eyes, but he could only ignore her. Right now there was only Autumn Snow in his heart. There was no room for other women. He only felt sorry for Jiang Qiling. He saw her as a mischievous sister. He didn't have any other thoughts about her. It was the same for Bai Xiaoshuang. He only treated Bai Xiaoshuang as his sister-in-law. Even though he had seen her pee before, he didn't think too much about it. His heart was now occupied by Autumn Snow alone. Lu Ling once told him that if he loved someone, he must be faithful. If he could not give the girl happiness, then he should not mess with her. After staying at the Ling Empress City for a couple of days, Lu Li was ready to set off. There was no news from the Pavilion of Delicacy, but Lu Li believed Song Qi should still be in the dangerous place. That being said, Lu Li had to be on guard. He must conquer the deserted world as soon as possible. He didn't bring too many people with him. He only planned to bring Yi Cha and the others. Ming Yu and Yu Huashan weren't with him. To conquer the deserted world, noble Lord Realm warriors would not do much good. If they could subdue the human sovereign realm warriors of the Titan race, they could kill the human sovereign realm warriors of the Stellar race. Ming Yu and the others didn't need to do anything else. The Titan race, Yi Cha, Mengji, and the others were enough. Of course, he also brought along another person, Autumn Snow. It wasn't that he wanted to be alone with Autumn Snow, but that Autumn Snow was of great use to him. The Hag race needed Bai Qiuxue as their leader. Her enchantment was powerful, and she could charm warriors of the noble Lord Realm. She was a powerful force. Lu Li didn't tell anyone about this, not even Madame Yen. He only said that he was going to take Bai Qiushue with him for some business. He asked Lu Feishue, Madame Yen and Yu Huashan to keep an eye on the northern desert, especially on the waters in the south. Lu Feishue and Madame Yen were happy. They thought Lu Li was taking Bai Qiushue on a trip. Madame Yen could tell the ambiguous relationship between Lu Li and Bai Qiushue. She was secretly delighted. Lu Li left with Bai Qiushue in the middle of the night. At the Heaven Prison City, Lu Li went to pay a visit to Du Zheng. Yi Cha was already waiting for him. They took the iron-armored ship to the area of demons. After they arrived at the area of demons, Lu Li didn't stop. He took Yi Cha and Bai Qiushue into the small world of Green Dwarf. Bai Qiushue didn't ask any questions along the way. Lu Li must have his reasons for what he was doing. But when she arrived at the small world with Lu Li, her eyes were wide open. At the foot of a hill stood 3 giants. They were all more than 30 feet tall with golden skin. They had no hair on their heads. They only wore a leather skirt to cover their bottoms. Their arms were bigger than people's bodies. They were covered in muscles and their fists were bigger than people's heads. Bai Qiushue had no doubt that if one of their fists landed on her, she would be smashed into a pulp in an instant. Even though the 3 giants were standing at the foot of the hill, they were as tall as the hill. The pressure was so strong that Bai Qiushue felt suffocated. They were 3 gods. Bang, bang, the 3 golden giants walked over in strides, emitting violent qi and energy. Bai Qiushue trembled. A cinnabar dot lit up between her eyebrows. She was about to release the enchantment. Plop! The 3 golden giants dropped to their knees 30 feet in front of Lu Li and then prostrated themselves. The one at the front shouted, Meng Ji and 2 patriarchs greet Saint Lord. What? Bai Qiushue stared at Lu Li in shock. Lu Li smiled and patted her back to comfort her. Then he said to Meng Ji and the other patriarchs, Get up. Congratulations on reaching the noble lord realm. Meng Ji didn't get up. Instead, he bowed again and said, Thank you, Saint Lord. Without your mystical materials we would never be able to come out. Bai Qiushue blinked. Yi Cha only called Lu Li young master in front of others, not Saint Lord. Now, the 3 powerful golden giants called Lu Li Saint Lord. In other words, these powerful alien races all worked for Lu Li? She found Lu Li to be more and more mysterious. How could a powerful race be loyal to Lu Li? I will explain to you later. I don't mean to hide it from you. Lu Li took Bai Qiushue's hands. She felt a surge of warmth. She was touched that Lu Li cared about her so much. Okay, get up now. Let's go to the entrance to the deserted world. Lu Li waved his hand, released his fate wheel, and flew up with Bai Qiushue. The entrance to the small world of green dwarfs had been sealed off. Nobody would be able to come in. Yi Cha and the 4 patriarchs released their beads of life. Meng Ji and the other 2 from the mammoth race ran on, much faster than Lu Li. Lu Li could have asked Yi Cha and the other patriarchs to carry him. But in order to spend more time with Bai Qiushue, he chose to fly by himself. He was not slow. He asked the others to lead the way while he and Bai Qiushue followed behind. Lu Li explained, This is the mammoth race. Clan leader Yi and the others are from the Cyan Phoenix race. Have you heard of them? Cyan Phoenix race and mammoth race? Bai Qiushue was a quiet girl. She was well-read and knew a lot. Just now, she thought the 3 were from the Titan race. Little did she know that they were from the mammoth race. She grabbed Lu Li's hands nervously and said, They are from the ancient times. I think they were wiped out by the Central Plains thousands of years ago. Lu Li, do they serve you as their master? Yes. Lu Li nodded and said, In the future, I will bring them back to the Central Plains and take back their ancestral lands. The 2 races are loyal to me. As long as I can, I will help them. Good heavens, Bai Qiushue was frightened. She knew something about the Central Plains. Lu Li was going to fight against the Samsara Palace and the other 4 forces? Was Lu Li out of his mind? Don't worry. Luli said with confidence, I will not do anything if I am not sure. If I cannot reach the human sovereign realm in this lifetime, I will stay with you at the northern desert for the rest of my life. If I have the ability, I will go to the Central Plains to fight for supremacy. I will let the disciples of the Lu family see. Driving me out of the Lu family was the worst thing they ever did. Sure, Bai Qiushua looked at Lu Li's determined face, nodded and said, Wherever you go, I will be with you. The man that I, Autumn Snow, like, is destined to shake the entire 9 prefectures, standing proudly above the masses. Ha ha ha. Lu Li was ignited by Bai Qiushua's words. He laughed and said, Let the journey to the world begin with the deserted world. The deserted world is mine. Chapter 429. 2 formations had been built at the entrance to the deserted world, and the Bai family had 3 warriors of the eternal realm guarding here. When Lu Li arrived, he asked Meng Ji and the others to hide nearby while he went to the entrance with Yi Cha and Bai Qiushua. Greetings, Emperor, young lady and lords. 3 patriarchs of the Bai family were sitting at the entrance. They stood up and saluted Lu Li when they saw him. Lu Li nodded and asked them to stand up. Then he asked, Is there anything going on in the formation? No, it has been quiet. A patriarch of the Bai family answered. Lu Li nodded, waved his hand and said, Open the formation. Send someone in and report back to me what you see. Even though it should be fine inside, Lu Li had to be careful. What if there was an ambush? They would all be killed if they went in. The formation was not complicated, and it was opened soon. The patriarch of the Bai family went in without any hesitation. The mud in the puddle had been cleaned up. Lu Li could see the teleportation formation down there. He thought about it and said, Another one. Another patriarch went in. They waited with bated breath. After the time for 3 incense sticks to burn, the teleportation formation lit up and the 2 patriarchs came back. One of them reported, Your Majesty, there are a bunch of females with black scales and horns on their heads. They speak a strange language, but they didn't attack us. Okay, that's enough. The hag race was still guarding the entrance, so it was safe. Lu Li waved his hand and said, Okay, step back for 30 miles and stay there. Do not leave without my orders. Yes. The Bai family had pledged allegiance to Lu Li, not to mention that Bai Qiushua was here. They left in a hurry. Lu Li looked at Yi Cha. A patriarch of the Cyan Phoenix race flew over with Meng Ji and the others. Let's go. Lu Li waved his hand. Yi Cha went in first, followed by the patriarch of the Cyan Phoenix race, and then the Mammoth race. They were worried that Lu Li would go in first. In case of danger, they could at least stall for a while. Buzzing. Lu Li took Bai Qiushua's hand. They felt a white glare and then the scenery changed. The Xian Qi in heaven and earth became richer. They were back at the deserted world. As soon as Lu Li came out, they looked around. There were many hags nearby and the patriarch of the hags race was not far away. Lu Li smiled. Qi when the Yiksha elder saw Autumn Snow, he hurriedly led the group of Yikshas to kneel down. Qi meant God in the ancient language. Autumn Snow had comprehended the heavenly enchantment of the Yiksha race. She was the god of the Yiksha race. Mengu. The patriarch of the hag race looked at Meng Ji and the others with curiosity. Bai Qiushua explained to Lu Li that Mengu meant the Titan race. The elder of the Yiksha tribe asked because he saw that the Mammoth tribe and the Titan tribe were very similar. Where is Qi? Lu Li didn't tell her about the Mammoth race. Bai Qiushua asked the patriarch of the hag race in the ancient language. Qikar was the name of the queen of the hag race. The elder answered quickly, saying that Qikar was in the king clan of the hag race. Qikar had ordered her to guard this place. Following which, Autumn Snow inquired about the situation in the vicinity. However, she did not reveal anything about Meng Ji and the others. She came back to report to Lu Li after learning that the yellow goblins were afraid to come closer and the area was quiet. Pheasant? How come they have such a name? Luli's focus was not on the information but the name of Chikar. Bai Qiuxue rolled her eyes and corrected him. It's Chikar, not pheasant. Oh, I see. Luli grinned and then ordered, go to the king clan of the hag race. Let the patriarch stay here. Send some flying hags and 10,000 warriors with us. Bai Qiuxue was confused. She asked, why do you need an escort? It will be slow. The hag race was fast but not as fast as Luli. Bai Qiuxue didn't understand Luli's arrangement. Luli smiled mysteriously and said, Bai Qiuxue, you used to be smart. How come you are so silly now? Women in love have 0 IQ, this saying is indeed true. Bai Qiuxue was angered. She glared at Luli, which amused him. She was so cute. Yicha, on the other hand, couldn't stand it anymore. He coughed and said, young master, we are all here. Find a place with no one else and then you can bicker. The word bicker was euphemistic. What Yicha meant was that they should find a place with no one else to flirt. It would be embarrassing if they did it in front of a bunch of old guys. Luli blushed. Bai Qiuxue was so shy that she wanted to bury herself in the ground. Luli waved his hand and told Bai Qiuxue to give the order. The patriarch of the hag race mobilized 10,000 warriors to go with Luli to the king clan. Luli asked Bai Qiuxue to give the order. The 10,000 warriors split into 10 groups and rushed toward the hag race. Luli and the others walked slowly in the middle of the army. Bai Qiuxue finally understood what Luli meant. They were surrounded by the army in the middle so that they wouldn't be exposed. As long as they were not exposed, it would be easy to arrange things. The army marched on. There were no more yellow goblins here. It was a quiet journey. After several days, they entered the territory of the hag race. Luli and the others were led by several flying hags. The hag race didn't pay much attention to Luli and the others. Instead, Mengji and the other two caused quite a stir among the hag race. The hag race relied on the Titan race. Without the Titan race, the hag race would have been destroyed a long time ago. Therefore, to the hag race, the Titan race was their master. Usually, the Titan race would never come here. How come 3 of them came here at the same time? How could the hag race not be shocked? Not long after they entered the territory of the hag race, Chikar, the queen of the hag race, came with a group of flying hags. When she saw Mengji and the other two, her face was filled with astonishment. Then, she became very confused. She flew over and bowed to Bai Qiuxue and Luli. In the end, she asked about Mengji and the other two. Luli told Bai Qiuxue to keep quiet and asked Chikar to seal off any information about Mengji and the other two. They rushed toward the king clan. Luli asked Chikar to dig some caves for Mengji and the other two to settle down. Then, they entered a luxurious imperial palace in the forbidden area of the hag race. Luli sat on the throne with Bai Qiuxue next to him. Luli asked Chikar, do you have a way to contact the clan leader of the Titan race? Tell him to come here. Bai Qiuxue was worried but Luli insisted on her translating. She had to talk to Chikar. Chikar's eyes flickered. Then she answered. She said that she was not powerful enough to ask God of Meng for help. The best she could do was to ask a patriarch of the Titan race. If it's an elder, then so be it. Invite one over as soon as possible. Luli waved his hand. Chikar was worried. She said that the Titan race had a bad temper, and they had a bad impression of humans. It was humans that had driven the Titan race out of the Central Plains. If they asked a patriarch of the Titan race to come, a conflict might break out. I told you to do it. Cut the crap. Luli was angry and so was Bai Qiuxue. She said to Chikar coldly. Chikar nodded and went to make arrangements. Chapter 430. The distance between the Titan race and the hag race was about the same as the distance between the Heaven Marshal City and the Thousand Island Lake. There was no teleportation formation in the deserted world. Therefore, even if the patriarchs of the Titan race could get here at full speed, It would take them 4 or 5 days. Luli and Bai Qiushue settled down in the imperial palace of the hag race. Yi Cha and the others lived there as well. Meng Ji and the others lived in the cave. Luli felt bored after sitting there for a couple of hours. He wanted to walk around. Bai Qiushue nodded with a blush and said, "That's good. I will go as well." Luli noticed that Bai Qiushue was blushing. He asked curiously, "Where are you going? How about we go together? You are more familiar with this place." "Go ahead." Bai Qiushue's cheeks were even redder. Luli understood now. Bai Qiushue wanted to go to the cave where she was locked up to further study the enchantment. Luli thought about it and said, "Okay, go ahead. I will go with clan leader Yi." Bai Qiushue left with a blushing face. Luli was not worried about her safety. He could tell from Qi and the others' attitude towards Bai Qiushue that they really worshipped her as a god. They would never hurt her. Luli and Yi Cha wandered around the forbidden area. Qi asked a flying hag to go with them. There were some strange buildings in the forbidden area, such as round temples and some tall totem poles. That being said, there were many reliefs on the temples, the totem poles, and some fake mountains. Those reliefs were all depicting erotic scenes. They were all pictures of men and women of the Yiksha race having fun. They were in various positions and doing all kinds of difficult actions. What was strange was that Luli and Yi Cha didn't find these erotic pictures obscene. Instead, they were pleasing to the eye like works of art. "Obscene, dirty, unsightly," Luli murmured as he walked and stopped. He stared at the reliefs and didn't miss a single one. Yi Cha rolled his eyes along the way. But the other patriarchs agreed, "Hag race is obscene, dirty, and obscene. Shameless. Hag race is scum. Right, look at this. They are hanging people up. Where is the law? Where is the moral limit? Unsightly, unsightly." The few elders cursed along the way, but their gazes were like magnets, unable to move away from the relief sculpture. Walking past another relief, Luli saw the patriarchs were still looking at him with passion. He glanced at them and said with a grin, "Patriarchs, you are still young. Do you want me to ask Qi to arrange some pretty hag race girls to serve you?" Yi Shi's face was full of awkwardness, and the 4 elders immediately put on a sanctimonious expression. The great elder waved his hand in a serious manner and said, "Holy Lord, we are not people like that." "Right, right." The second patriarch nodded and said, "We are just criticizing the obscene sculptures of the Yikshas. They are too outrageous." The third elder agreed and said, "There are all kinds of strange things in the world. I don't think a race as evil as the Yikshas should exist in this world anymore. I think we should completely destroy them, from their souls to their bodies." "That's right." The fourth patriarch said angrily, "I suggest that we go deeper into the study of the hag race later and see how we can destroy this race. Saint Lord, we cannot wait any longer. Please ask Qi to come here and send some girls of the hag race to our room. We will use the cruelest means to deal with this race." Luli was speechless. Each of the 4 old men was more shameless than the other. They could see that the relief sculpture was very interested in the hag race, but they were speaking in such a righteous manner. Luli looked at Yi Shi and asked, "Clan leader Yi, what about you? Do you want to go and destroy some girls of the hag race as well?" "Second brother and the others are just a bunch of bastards. We've made a fool of ourselves in front of the Holy Lord." Yi Shi was ashamed. He shook his head and said, "I don't think so. I am stronger than them. I don't think I can satisfy them." Plop! Luli blacked out and fell to the ground. Yi Shi had been acting in a serious manner. Luli didn't know that he was this kind of person. "Okay, Qiushue is in the cave. I will go and find her." Luli waved his hand and said, "Go and find Qi. Just don't leave the forbidden area." Yi Shi and the others knew that Bai Qiushue had gone into the cave, so they left to find Qi. Luli blacked out again when he saw Yi Shi was blushing and beaming with joy. He had misjudged these old men, there were 2 flying hags guarding outside the cave. They knew who Luli was. Since Chikur was so respectful to him, they wouldn't stop Luli. The cave was spacious with some oil lamps in it. The yellow glow added to the atmosphere in the cave. Along the way, Luli saw the relief sculptures of men and women having fun on the walls, which were more erotic and sinister. About 300 feet in, Luli saw a hall with 2 rooms on the left and right side of the hall and another room in front of him. One of the flying hags pointed to the room and mumbled something. Luli knew Bai Chioshua was in there. He pushed the door open and walked in. The room was not big. The walls were neat and there was a bed. The 4 walls were engraved with reliefs of the outside world. However, the reliefs here were different from those outside, because the reliefs here were actually colored, and the carvings were vivid and lifelike, as if they were real people. Bai Chioshua was standing on a wall. Her face was red and so was her neck. But her eyes were closed. She was trying to sense something. Luli walked to the side. He took a few looks and cursed again. His breaths were short. Maybe it was because his beautiful lover was standing next to him that he was aroused. He turned around and looked at Bai Chioshua, her beautiful face and graceful body. She was clearly an incomparably pure and holy woman, yet she was standing in such a lewd room. It gave rise to an extremely contradictory feeling, but this feeling was very stimulating. Outside, she was a saint. At home, she was a lady. In bed, she was a prostitute. This was the ideal partner for many men. Bai Chioshua was developing this way. Luli exclaimed to himself that he was lucky to have this girl. What more could he ask for? Unconsciously, Luli's breaths became shorter. Finally, he woke Bai Chioshua up. She was surprised. When she saw it was Luli, she was so shy that she didn't dare to show her face. Luli was mesmerized by the girl's charm. Chioshua! Luli looked at Bai Chioshua affectionately. He picked her up and walked to the bed. Luli could not hold it in any longer. He wanted to have sex with Bai Chioshua today. Their lips touched and their tongues tangled together. They could not separate. The 2 bodies hugged each other tightly. The ribbon slipped off. Luli ripped off Bai Chioshua's dress rudely, revealing her pink bellyband. Her breasts were on the verge of bursting out. Luli let out a beast-like roar. He could not hold it in any more. No, no. Bai Chioshua suddenly remembered something. Her misty eyes became clear again. She pushed Luli away and shouted, "No, not today. My period is coming." *T. Chapter 431. Luli had a comfortable life these days. He stayed with Bai Chioshua every day. Of course, they never went back to that cave again. It was as if there was some magic in that cave that could ignite their passion. Bai Chioshua wanted to give herself to Luli. After all, they were in love and Luli was not the kind of person to abandon her. But it was not the right time. There were some scenic spots near the royal family of the hag race. It was rare for the 2 of them to be alone. Naturally, they would not let go of this chance. They spent all their time together, sightseeing, like an immortal couple. Yi Cha and the others disappointed Luli. They left Bai Chioshua and stayed in the imperial palace all day. Chikur arranged more than a dozen of the most beautiful girls in the tribe for them to flirt and do immoral things all day long. On the 5th day, a scout of the hag race sent a message that the patriarch of the Titan race had entered the territory of the hag race with 5 Titans. Chikur asked someone to invite Luli back at once. Yi Cha and the others came out from the imperial palace as well. The 5 of them were full of righteousness. Their white beards danced in the wind as if they were immortals. That being said, they were a bit unsteady. Clearly, they had been having too much sex these days. Luli didn't mind them. He stood at the Forbidden Land, gazing into the distance, waiting for the patriarch of the Titan race to come. He didn't show any emotion, but he was nervous inside. It was of the utmost importance for him to take down the Titan race. If he couldn't, then the deserted world would be doomed. Bang, 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 from the distance came some muffled sounds of footstep. Following that, several flying hags came from the distance. 6 towering giants emerged from the mountains in the distance. They were fast. In one step, they had crossed a small mountain. In the time for one incense stick to burn, they had arrived at the Forbidden Land. Luli and the others finally saw the Titan race clearly. One of their doubts was solved. No wonder the hag race mistook Meng-Ji and the others for the Titan race. The Titan race was similar to the Mammoth race. Their physiques were identical, both more than 30 feet tall. Their arms were thicker than human bodies and their eyes were as big as bells, full of cruelty. The difference was that the Titan race's skin was not golden like the Mammoth race's. Instead, it was dark gold. They had a small horn on their heads. Human race. The Titan at the front stared at Luli and Bai Qiushue, who were next to Chikur. He shouted in the human language. A glint of cruelty rose in his eyes. Without any nonsense, he raised his fist and smashed at Luli and Bai Qiushue. Humph! Yi Cha and the others stood in front of Luli at once. Meng-Ji came out from a cave not far away. Meng-Ji shouted, "How dare you disrespect Saint Lord? Stop!" The Mammoth race's body was huge, and so was their voice. The Titan race's elder swept his gaze across, and his huge arm immediately stopped in midair. His eyes were filled with astonishment. The other 5 Titans were stunned as well. Then, they began to speak in a language that no one could understand. Meng-Ji walked over with 2 patriarchs. They stood in front of Luli and glared at the Titan race patriarch. The Titan race patriarch talked to Meng-Ji in some strange language. Bai Qiushue could understand the ancient language, so she translated for Luli. Luli listened for a while, but his heart was in his throat. The 2 of them were talking about the Mammoth race. The Titan race elder asked if the Mammoth race had been exterminated. How could someone survive? Meng-Ji explained but didn't ask about the Titan race. Bai Qiushue said the Titan race patriarch wasn't as polite to Meng-Ji as she imagined. Yi Cha moved closer to Luli and whispered to him. Luli finally understood. The Titan race was the descendant of the Mammoth race. Once upon a time, there was a genius of the Mammoth race. However, he was violent and disliked by the big shots of the race. He lost the fight for the throne against the clan leader of that generation and was exiled. The genius left the Mammoth race to cultivate on his own. He married an alien race and gave birth to the Titan race. Therefore, even though the Titan race originated from the Mammoth race, they weren't on good terms. Later on, when the Titan race was attacked by humans, the Mammoth race sent out reinforcements. However, because humans were too powerful, the Mammoth race retreated. As a result, the Titan race was almost wiped out. The survivors left the Central Plains and fled like stray dogs. 5,000 years ago, the Mammoth race and the Cyan Phoenix race were wiped out as well. The Titan race thought the Mammoth race was wiped out. It was not until they saw Meng-Ji today that they realized some of their race were still alive. They were surprised, so they asked about it. Even though the Titan race is the descendant of the Mammoth race, they are not on good terms. It is going to be difficult to take them back, Luli thought to himself. Meng-Ji said something else to the Titan race patriarch, which made the latter furious. The patriarch pointed at Luli and yelled at him in some strange language. His eyes were filled with cruelty. Luli was annoyed. He said, "Didn't you say you could speak human language? I don't understand your ancient language. If you want to scold me, just do it in human language." The Titan race patriarch did speak human language. He was enraged by Luli's words. The patriarch sneered and said, "You humans are all despicable people. You are the dirtiest creatures in the world. Clan leader Meng, you want us to surrender to him? Have you gone senile? You will drag the Mammoth race into the abyss and into extinction." Meng-Ji was enraged to see the Titan race patriarch slandering Luli. He said, "Meng Hua, Saint Lord is not a despicable person. He is the Saint Lord chosen by the ancestor god of the Cyan Phoenix race using heaven augury. He can lead us back to the Central Plains and take back our ancestral lands. I will not allow you to insult Saint Lord. What a joke! The Titan race patriarch sneered and said coldly, back in the old days, humans were weak, so they befriended the 10,000 races. They benefited from both sides. What happened next? The 10,000 races were at war. Humans took the chance to develop. When they became stronger, they slaughtered us. They took our ancestral lands, fought for our resources, and killed our people. I even suspect that the 3 wars were instigated by the despicable humans. Humans cannot be trusted. Clan leader Meng, do you still not understand the bloody lessons we have learned? Lu Li and Bai Qiushua looked at each other. They were deep in thought after hearing the secret. They didn't even doubt the words of the Titan race patriarch. They both agreed that humans were cunning and insidious. Of course, humans did not do anything wrong. They were doing it for the development and growth of the human race. Survival of the world was the way to go. As for morality and friendship, those were **t in the eyes of many important human figures. Meng Ji didn't know how to refute. He stared at the Titan race patriarch and said, Meng Hua, Saint Lord is not like that. Without him we cannot come out. Only Saint Lord can lead us back to the Central Plains and take back our ancestral land. Him? Meng Hua said with ridicule. He is just a puny human being and he is so weak. I can smash him into a pulp with one punch. You say he can lead you back to your ancestral lands? Are you out of your mind? Chapter 432. Saint Lord no. Meng Ji was panicking. He didn't know Lu Li's abilities. As far as he was concerned, Lu Li was too young and he was only at the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm. How could Lu Li be a match for Meng Hua? Meng Hua wouldn't be hurt even if Lu Li just stood there and let Meng Ji hit him. Meng Ji knew all too well how strong the Mammoth race and the Titan race were. Yi Cha was worried as well. He didn't know Lu Li's abilities well either. Lu Li fought twice after he went back to the northern desert. The first time was with Du Heng when Yi Cha wasn't there. The second time was with Chi Ke. But Lu Li only used his blood claw and nothing else. Bai Qiushua was nervous. She whispered, Lu Li, let me go. I can charm him. No. Naturally, Lu Li could not let anyone else take his place because he had to give the Titan race confidence. To prove that he could lead them back to the Central Plains and take back their ancestral land. What would be the point if Bai Qiushua did it? Ha ha ha. Meng Hua laughed. He looked at Lu Li with ridicule and said, Very good, human. You have guts. If you want to play, I will play with you. But I cannot represent the Titan race. If you can stay alive for the time for one incense stick to burn, I will ask our clan leader to come over. Okay, it's a deal. Lu Li nodded with confidence. Then he looked at Chi Ke and said, Let's find a spacious place. I will fight with Patriarch Meng. Don't say anything else. I have made up my mind. Yi Jie and Meng Ji looked at each other and nodded silently. If Lu Li was defeated, then they would have to protect him by force. Bai Qiushua had the same idea. Chi Ke flew to a huge valley with the others. They drove away all the hags in the valley and Chi Ke ordered them to stay away. Lu Li and the others stood on the peak next to the valley while Meng Hua stood in the middle. The other 5 titans stood on the other side of the valley with sarcasm, like 5 pillars reaching to the sky. Little White, wake up. Lu Li wanted to wake up Little White that had been sleeping for a long time. On their way back to the northern desert from the eastern Central Plains, Little White ate many soul crystals and it hadn't woken up yet. Failure was not an option. That was why Lu Li wanted to wake Little White up to help him. However, when he took Little White out of his sleeve, it was still in a deep sleep. Forget it, Lu Li handed Little White to Bai Qiushua, took out his fate wheel, and flew up slowly. He had asked Yi Jie just now, and the souls of the Titans should not be considered strong. The Titan race was similar to the Mammoth race. They were creatures with well-developed limbs but simple minds. Naturally, their souls would not be too strong. Let's start the timer. Lu Li took a deep breath and released the burning blood skill. He looked at Yi Cha and the others, cupped his fists and said to Meng Hua, "Patriarch Meng, please." "Alright," Meng Hua shouted. The dark golden skin on his body shone brightly, and a terrifying qi and blood was emitted from his body. At that moment, Lu Li felt it was not a titan standing in front of him, but a beast king, an ancient wild beast. Boom! Meng Hua stomped on the ground, and 2 deep pits appeared on the ground. Meng Hua's huge body flew up. A huge dark golden hand, like the hand of a god, grabbed towards Lu Li as fast as lightning. So fast! Lu Li's pupils contracted. He controlled his fate wheel to step back at once and at the same time, released his cloning skill. In an instant, there were more than a dozen Lu Li in the air. Every one of them was on a fate wheel, flying around in all directions. It was the first time for them to see this skill of Lu Li's. They were all stunned. Yi Cha and the patriarchs of the Cyan Phoenix race looked at each other in astonishment. None of them could see Lu Li's real body. "Profound meaning," Yi Cha said. He was excited. Only a profound meaning could be so powerful. Not even a secret skill from the ancient times could be hidden from warriors of the noble Lord realm. Lu Li seemed to have mastered the speed profound meaning not long ago. Now, he had released another one? The patriarchs of the Cyan Phoenix race were both envious and happy. They hadn't learned any profound meaning, yet Lu Li had the chance to learn too? Comparisons were odious. Bai Qiushue's eyes glowed. She could tell from the surprise on the faces of Yi Cha and the others how powerful Lu Li's skill was. She secretly felt proud in her heart. The man she loved was so outstanding. Meng Hua's eyes were filled with astonishment. It was true that he could not see Lu Li's real body. Seeing Lu Li's clones flying around, Meng Hua had to resort to the simplest method. "Hoi!" Meng Hua clenched his fist and smashed at one of Lu Li's clones. This punch was so powerful that it shook the space around it, causing ripples to spread out. When the ripples spread out, 2 of Lu Li's clones were shattered. The clan leader of the Titan race was cheered up. He jumped up from the ground and punched at nothing. The ripples in space shattered all of Lu Li's clones. Clones. Lu Li created clones again. He looked solemn. Meng Hua was large in size, but he was agile and fast. He was even faster than Ming Yu. Lu Li didn't dare to get close to Meng Hua. The time for one incense stick to burn was fast. Lu Li could hold on. That being said, Lu Li's goal was not to survive the time for one incense stick to burn. He wanted to injure Meng Hua so as to awe the clan leader of the Titan race. Otherwise, when the clan leader of the Titan race came, Lu Li would have a hard time convincing him. This trip to the deserted world would be pointless, and the deserted world would be lost forever. The thing was, Meng Hua was fast and his attacks were ferocious. How could Lu Li get close? Even if he did, he would be smashed to death by Meng Hua. Speed, I am too slow. Lu Li kept creating clones. He controlled them to move closer to Meng Hua while he stayed far away in case he was attacked. Lu Li began to think about how to speed up. Only when he was fast could he get close to Meng Hua and hurt him with his blood claw. Speed, profound meaning. After much thought, he decided to use it. The thing was, he had only scratched the surface of this profound meaning. He didn't know how to use it at all. Hoi! Meng Hua kept punching, smashing the clones one by one. As time went on, Meng Hua was getting impatient. The time for one incense stick to burn was almost up. He couldn't do anything to a human young man? If the news got back to the Titan race, his reputation would be damaged. He rolled his eyes and realized that he could smash the clones that were close to him. But there was one clone that was still flying in the distance. Meng Hua had an idea. His legs glowed in a dark golden color and he sped up. His fist smashed at the clone in the distance like a sharp sword. This was Lu Li's real body. He had been thinking about how to use the speed profound meaning, so he was distracted. Now, a fist as big as a casserole was getting closer and closer. From the depth of his soul came a sense of fatal danger. The fist was getting closer and the ripples in space were spreading out. Even his clones would be shattered. It would be too late for him to run away. Oh no! Menghua, stop! Meng Ji and Yi Cha were alarmed. The ripples in space could not shatter the clone, which meant that this was the real body. How could Lu Li survive after being hit by Menghua? Whoosh! Almost at the same time, Yi Cha and the others flew up. Bai Qiuxue was taken aback. A cinnabar dot lit up between her eyebrows and her fate wheel came out. She flew over to Lu Li. Don't come over! Right at that moment, Lu Li shouted. His body remained motionless, his eyes fixed on the rippling space waves. Suddenly, the corners of his mouth curled up. He smiled. P.S. I wanted to write 5 chapters but I didn't. I will write 5 tomorrow. Also, I recommend an urban novel, Dao Yiging's Perfect Life. Old Freak was following this book as well. It is a good read. Those who like urban novels should not miss it. Chapter 433. Lu Li had been trying to figure out how to release the speed profound meaning. At this moment, he had a vague idea. Menghua's punch had deeply touched him. How could a person's punch in the air cause a space shockwave? It was normal for a powerful warrior to tear apart space and cause ripples in space. What was not normal was that the ripples caused by Menghua's punch were so horrifying that they could shatter Lu Li's clones. No matter how strong a warrior's punch was, no matter how powerful the ripples caused by the punch were, the strength in the punch would not be transmitted into space. Spatial oscillation was just a fluctuation in space. How could it scatter his doppelganger? Lu Li had a deep understanding of the mirror image profound meaning. Even though the number of his clones didn't increase, they were stable. Regular ripples in space could not shatter them. If so, how did he shatter his clones? Clearly, there was a powerful force in the ripples in space. Lu Li could feel it clearly. If he were hit by the ripples in space, he would be smashed away while spitting out blood. When the punch was in the air, the force wouldn't be transmitted out. Where did the force in the ripples in space come from? At this moment, Lu Li had an answer. This was not an average move. It had touched upon space and triggered the force in heaven and earth. Tornadoes could spin because they triggered the force in heaven and earth. What Lu Li learned from this punch was not the space profound meaning, but how to trigger the force in heaven and earth. It was the same with the speed profound meaning. Lu Li didn't know how to use the speed profound meaning before. At this moment, he was enlightened. As long as he could trigger the force in heaven and earth, he could release the speed profound meaning. Menghua's fist was only 30 feet away from Lu Li. It would arrive in an instant. The fate wheel under Lu Li's feet began to spin at a fast speed. It was getting faster and faster. Because of Lu Li's fast spinning, a gale sprang up, whoosh. Lu Li suddenly vanished in midair. All they saw was a glare, and then Lu Li vanished from their sight. Swish, swish, Menghua's fist pierced through the air, but the man in front of him disappeared. Menghua looked up to the sky in surprise. Lu Li's speed was unimaginably fast. He was about to be killed by Menghua's fist, but he dodged it? Bai Qiuxue and the others looked up and saw that Lu Li was more than 300 feet above Menghua. Everyone was relieved, but they were also speechless, especially Yi Cha and the others. The speed of the Cyan Phoenix clan was the fastest in the Central Plains. Even the elders would not have been able to dodge that punch just now. Only Yi Shi could. Yi Cha was as fast as a human sovereign realm warrior. In other words, Lu Li was as fast as a human sovereign realm warrior? Impossible! Yi Cha and the others widened their eyes in disbelief. What kind of profound meaning could raise the speed of someone in the middle stage of the imperishable realm to the speed of a renhuang? Could it be a profound meaning above the 7th grade? Lu Li once said that his profound meaning was the speed profound meaning, which he named himself. Yi Cha and the others never read about it in their ancestral record. The speed of the speed ultimacy was also fast, so the others didn't pay much attention to it, thinking that it was just an ordinary ultimacy. For his speed to reach such a terrifying level, it could only be explained by a profound meaning of the 7th rank or above. A profound meaning above the 7th grade. Even Yi Cha was jealous. Profound meanings were the hardest to learn, not to mention those above the 7th grade. With this profound meaning, when Lu Li reached the Noble Lord realm, not even human sovereign realm warriors would be able to catch up with him. Whoosh! A sword suddenly appeared in Lu Li's hand. With a white glare, he generated more than a dozen clones. Then the more than a dozen Lu Li spun around and flew away. Meng Huo and the warriors of the Titan race were frightened. Lu Li was too fast. They could only see a white glare, and then one by one Lu Li would come down and stab at Meng Huo with their swords. Hoi! Meng Huo punched at the Lu Li one by one. Every time his fist passed by, space would tremble and Lu Li's clones would be shattered. However, Lu Li's clones kept coming at Meng Huo. Meng Huo was worried that one of them might be the real one. He didn't stop for a moment and kept punching. Soon, the time for one incense stick to burn was up. Chapter 434. There was a hole on Meng Huo's back with blood gushing out. But Meng Huo didn't care. He just stared at Lu Li's hand. Lu Li cupped his fists and the blood claw was gone. Therefore, his hand was fair and slender, no different from an average hand. That being said, his right hand was covered in blood, and it was still dripping down. Meng Huo and the 3 warriors of the Titan race looked at Lu Li's hand with surprise. Just now, Lu Li had been hiding his hand in his sleeve, and he was fast. He had his back to the 3 warriors of the Titan race, so they didn't see it clearly. But they didn't see anything wrong. Therefore, Meng Huo and the others were confused. They didn't know how Lu Li managed to get his hand into Meng Huo's heart. All hail Saint Lord! Meng Ji shouted. He knew very well that the defense of the Titan race was not weaker than that of the Mammoth race. What was more, there were some dark golden scales on Meng Huo's back. But Meng Huo still got in easily. Lu Li's abilities made Meng Ji more determined to follow him. A warrior at the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm could be as fast as a human sovereign realm warrior? He could break through Meng Huo's defense easily. He was only 17 years old. How powerful could he be in dozens of years? All hail Saint Lord! Yi Cha and the others bowed and shouted as well. Their eyes were glowing. Lu Li had used all he had today. His growth was beyond the expectation of Yi Cha and the others. They all saw hope. So powerful! Bai Qiuxue exclaimed to herself. Lu Li's eyes were glowing and he showed his silver claw, but she didn't mind. Beauty was in the eye of the beholder. She would follow Lu Li without any complaint even if he were to become an orc. Meng Huo stood there for a while. Then he took out a pellet from his interspatial ring and swallowed it. He said in a muffled voice, I am not as good as you and I admit defeat. I will invite our family patriarch over now. Please wait for 3 days. As for what our family patriarch will say when he comes, I don't care. Meng Huo's willingness to admit defeat left a good impression on Lu Li. These races were not as cunning as the human race. They would not go back on their words and they would admit defeat. This was a good thing. I took advantage of the situation. Patriarch Meng, don't worry. Lu Li gave Meng Huo a way out, but Meng Huo didn't appreciate it. He snorted and said, Win is win and lose is lose. There is nothing to say. If you didn't stop, I would have been dead. With that, Meng Huo, Li, and Huo. Meng Huo left and arranged accommodations for Huo and the others. Lu Li and the others went back to the imperial palace. Yi Cha sat down and cupped his fists. Congratulations, Saint Lord. You have made great progress in profound meaning. From what I can see, this profound meaning is at least a 7th grade profound meaning, possibly even a 9th grade profound meaning. The Ming, Li said, and Lan, the Yen Shan, the clan, the Ling, the Li, and said. The Lu rank God Lu. The Li didn't Hua. Li didn't Lu. He. Lu, I, Lu didn't Lu Li. Li didn't. Li from, not. Actually, he, from, he. Lu Renhuang's profound meaning was only of the 6th rank. Lu Renhuang was the most talented genius of the Central Plains in the past 100,000 years. Then, wouldn't Yi Cha be more powerful than him? Yi Cha explained, only a profound meaning above the 7th rank can help a warrior at the middle stage of the Eternal Realm to reach the human sovereign realm. Middle stage of the Eternal Realm? Lu Li was surprised. Then he remembered that he could be as fast as a warrior at the middle stage of the Eternal Realm with his 2-layered Fate Wheel. Fate Wheel. Lu Li thought about it. He spun on the spot and released the profound meaning. He rushed out of the Imperial Palace as fast as he could. What disappointed him was, he didn't use his Fate Wheel. He only released his profound meaning. Even though his speed was increased, it was not that much. At best, he could only be as fast as a warrior at the peak of the Eternal Realm. Yi Cha and the others frowned in confusion when they saw Lu Li dashing out in a gust of wind, and then coming back at a slower speed. Lu Li was disappointed. He just confirmed one thing. The profound meaning of speed was not that powerful. It was not a profound meaning above the 7th rank. The reason why he could be so fast was because of his Fate Wheel. In other words, the Fate Wheel increased his speed. After he released the profound meaning, the speed of the Fate Wheel was further increased. His Fate Wheel was strange and miraculous, but the profound meaning of speed was not a profound meaning above the 7th rank. Even though he had confirmed this, Lu Li soon adjusted his mind. The Fate Wheel was his. Whether the profound meaning of speed was of the 7th rank or not, at least his speed was horrifying. That was his real fighting capacity. From now on, he wouldn't be afraid of warriors of the Noble Lord Realm. At least, he could run away if he couldn't win. He didn't explain to Yi Cha and the others. He didn't understand the dragon pattern on his Fate Wheel. The dragon pattern was his biggest secret. He would not tell anyone, not even Bai Qiuxue. He asked Yi Cha and the others to leave. He looked at Bai Qiuxue and explained, Qiuxue, I have some secrets but I don't understand them myself, so I am not going to tell you now. All I can say is that I am a pure-blooded human. Stop it. Bai Qiuxue covered Lu Li's mouth with her pretty hand. She smiled and said, So what if you are of another race? What I like is you, not the others. Lu Li smiled and hugged Bai Qiuxue in his arms. But he grew solemn. In a few days, the clan leader of the Titan race would come. Would everything go well? The Titan race originated from the Mammoth race, which they all agreed on. But the Titan race would not take orders from the Mammoth race. Meng Hu didn't even care about Meng Ji, let alone God of Meng, who was at the human sovereign realm. The Titan race hated humans. How could the clan leader believe that Lu Li could lead the Titan race back to the Central Plains and take back their ancestral land? How could the clan leader of the Titan race believe that Lu Li himself could lead the Titan race back to the Central Plains and take back their ancestral land? If the Titan race could not be brought under control, then there would be no need to fight for the deserted world. If Song Qi sneaked back to the northern desert without conquering the deserted world, Lu Li didn't know what to do next. Bai Qiuxue sensed something was wrong. She looked up at Lu Li. Her gem-like eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. She sighed and said, Lu Li, don't put too much pressure on yourself. We can leave the northern desert and live in seclusion on an island. Live in seclusion? Lu Li put on a bitter smile. If he were an average person with such a beautiful wife, living in seclusion would be a good way out. Live in seclusion? What about Lu Ling? What about his father and mother? What about Ming Yu and Yi Cha of the Bai family? There were no resources on the island. Nobody could cultivate. The Bai family would fall apart at once, Bai Qiuxiu sighed. She knew her idea was naive. Women in love would lose their intelligence. Never mind. There is always a way out. Chapter 435. The king of the Titan race had arrived in just 3 days. Moreover, he had come alone, seemingly unafraid of any ambush. Of course, no one in the deserted world could ambush and kill him. He was one of the 2 strongest cultivators in the deserted world. God of Menghua didn't know how Menghua sent the message and the content was unknown. Just like that, God of Meng broke into the hag race and threw the entire race into chaos. Chiker and the others immediately went to welcome them with the leaders of the Yaksha clan. Menghua had received the news long ago, so he went to welcome them immediately. Lu Li and the others remained calm. They were here to subdue the Titan race. Even if God of Meng was a human sovereign realm warrior, they could not lose their composure. Otherwise, people would be loyal to God of Meng instead of Lu Li. Boom! God of Meng walked over with Menghua and the others. Before they got close to the Forbidden Land, a beast-like energy spread over and enveloped the entire Forbidden Land. Even human sovereign realm warriors were horrifying, not to mention that the Titan race was even more so. God of Meng had clearly come with ill intentions. He was at the peak of his power, suffocating Lu Li and the others. It was like the dark clouds before the storm, making people involuntarily feel suffocated, depressed, and terrified. Lu Li didn't come out. Meng Ji and Yi Cha came out. They stood outside the Forbidden Land and looked at God of Meng indifferently. The Titan race originated from the Mammoth race. As the current clan leader of the Mammoth race, Meng Ji was confident. Even though his realm was not as high as that of God of Meng, his status was high. The Cyan Phoenix race was also an ancient race, and the Mammoth race had always been following the Cyan Phoenix race. In other words, the Mammoth race was the Green Phoenix race's little brother, and the Titan race was the little brother of the little brother. Yi Cha naturally had pride in his bones. What was a Renhuang? Back then, the Mammoth clan and the Cyan Phoenix clan had many human sovereigns. There was a slight difference between God of Meng and Menghua. God of Meng was larger in size and his skin was more golden, between gold and dark gold. His big eyes were filled with indifference, and he had a dignified demeanor. He stared at Meng Ji for a moment and said, "You are the current chief of the Mammoth race, Meng Ji?" Meng Ji nodded and said, "God of Meng, why don't you bow to me? Don't tell me your Titan race doesn't recognize your ancestors anymore?" Meng Ji's words made God of Meng's expression change. Menghua and the others pulled a long face. Meng Ji had no other choice. He knew very well what Lu Li was here for. He wanted to conquer the deserted world for Lu Li. Therefore, he had to use the ancestral race to pressure God of Meng. In the divine Great Land, the clan was something that people valued very much. For example, Lu Li had no affection for the Lu family, and he was disappointed by the Lu family. That being said, Lu Li was still unhappy that the Lu family had exiled him. He wanted to build a new Lu family at the northern desert. The clan was the root of a martial artist. After death, the spirit tablet could be placed in the ancestral temple of the clan. That way, one would not become a wandering ghost. There were countless forces in this world, but all of them were formed by clans. The family was more important than anything else. The benefits of the family were above everything else. It was obvious how important the family was to the people of the divine Great Land. The relationship between the Mammoth race and the Titan race was not good, but the Titan race originated from the Mammoth race. This was something that could not be changed. As the current clan leader of the Mammoth race, Meng Ji had the right to make God of Meng kneel. If God of Meng didn't, it would be disrespectful to his ancestors unless the Titan race became independent and disowned the Mammoth race. A glint of coldness rose in God of Meng's bell-like eyes. He bowed, cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, clan leader of the ancestral race." God of Meng, who was at the human sovereign realm, lowered his head. But he didn't kneel. His attitude was clear. The Titan race recognized the Mammoth race, but it didn't mean that the Titan race had to listen to the Mammoth race. Meng Ji and Yi Cha were satisfied with this result. Meng Ji said, "God of Meng, please rise. We are one race. Now, our ancestral land is occupied and our disciples are dying. Our future is bleak. It is time for us to work together and develop together. I hope that you can see the situation clearly and forget about the past. Let's take back our ancestral land and rebuild our glory." Once again, Meng Ji used his identity to pressure God of Meng. There was no other way. If Meng Ji were at the human sovereign realm and God of Meng was only at the noble lord realm, he wouldn't have to speak in such a humble manner. For the Mammoth race, the Titan race was a traitor, a bastard. Meng Hua and the others showed expressions of ridicule. God of Meng was surprised. Meng Ji's words were bullying, but he did admit one thing. The two races belonged to the same race? Did it mean that the Mammoth race was willing to accept the Titan race and admit that the Titan race was a branch of the Mammoth race? The ancestors of the Titan race betrayed the Mammoth race, and the Mammoth race regarded the ancestors as traitors. Even though the Mammoth race acquiesced to the existence of the Titan race, they never publicly acknowledged the status of the Titan race. Because of this, the ancestors of the Titan race died with everlasting regret. In his last words, he told every clan leader of the Titan race that they must find a way to gain the recognition of the Mammoth race and return to the ancestral race. Meng Ji gave a signal. God of Meng was intrigued. He thought about it and said, "Clan leader Meng Ji, what do you need us to do since you called me here?" Meng Hua had told him some things through a special method, but he needed confirmation from Meng Ji in person. Now that Meng Ji had offered him an olive branch, God of Meng would have to wait for Meng Ji to state his conditions and weigh the pros and cons before making a decision. Meng Ji and Yi Cha looked at each other. Both of them were excited. It seemed that God of Meng was concerned about the Mammoth race acknowledging the status of the Titan race. If so, this was a promising plan. Meng Ji presented the conditions he had prepared. But he didn't come up with the conditions. They were discussed by Lu Li and Yi Cha. Meng Ji said, "We are now occupying the entire northern desert and we have a great force. We want to take advantage of the northern desert to grow, and when we get back to the central plains, we will take back our ancestral land. Therefore, we want to invite the Titan race to join us and work together." The sneer on the faces of the Titan race's patriarchs grew. The meaning in their eyes could not be clearer. They were saying in silence that Meng Ji and the others were overestimating themselves and talking nonsense. As the clan leader of the Titan race, God of Meng would not show too many emotions. He thought about it and asked, "Do you have a great force? Then, how many powerful warriors do you have? Are there any at the Earth Immortal Realm? How many human Sovereign Realm warriors do you have?" The question hit the nail on the head. Meng Ji was embarrassed. Even Yi Cha felt embarrassed. Meng Ji thought about it and said, "We don't have any human Sovereign Realm warriors now. But Saint Lord is talented. In a few years, you will reach the human Sovereign Realm or even the Earth Immortal Realm. As long as we have enough resources, we and the Cyan Phoenix race will develop soon. By then, there will be hope." Meng Ji's voice was fading away. Even he was losing confidence. Yi Cha and the others said nothing. Their faces were solemn. "Ha ha ha." God of Meng laughed. He shook his head and sighed. "Meng Ji, are you stupid? How did our two races get wiped out? How did the 10,000 races get slaughtered? Have you forgotten the pain now that you are healed? When the human race needs you, they will promise you anything. When they are done with you, they will raise their weapons again. How can you be loyal to a human punk just because of his promise?" Chapter 436. God of Meng's voice was loud, so loud that even Yi Cha, Meng Ji and the others were trembling. Lu Li and Bai Qiuxue in the imperial palace also felt their eardrums were ringing. God of Meng's words were not unreasonable. Back in the old days, the 10,000 races were strong and humans were weak. The 10,000 races didn't take humans seriously. Humans benefited from both sides. They befriended the other races and took advantage of this to develop. However, as humans grew stronger, they began to raise their butcher's knife. They started to fight against their former allies and take over territories. In the end, many of the 10,000 races were wiped out. Humans occupied the most fertile land of the Great Land and all the resources and treasures. The history of the rise of humans was a history of blood and tears for the 10,000 races. Many races were struggling to survive in small worlds, in wild mountains, and in corners. They never forgot the glory of the past, the history filled with blood and tears and hatred. History aside, could Lu Li, a young human, really lead the races back to the Central Plains and take back their ancestral lands? God of Meng and the others thought it was ridiculous. Lu Li was only at the Fate Wheel realm. It was still unknown if he could reach the human sovereign realm or the Earth Immortal realm. Even if he could, so what? How many Earth Immortal realm warriors were there in the 6 forces? How powerful was the Samsara Palace? That was the most powerful force at the Central Plains. It was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot with such a small number of warriors. Yi Cha didn't dare to interrupt the conversation between Meng Ji and God of Meng for fear that the situation would get worse. He winked at Meng Ji, who came to his senses, and said, "An ancestor god of the Cyan Phoenix race got half a scroll of heaven augury spell and he left a tablet. It states that Saint Lord can lead us back to the Central Plains and take back our ancestral lands. God of Meng, don't you believe in heaven augury spell?" Heaven augury spell? God of Meng's eyes glowed. Meng Hua and the Titan race were surprised as well. Heaven augury spell was famous. It was one of the 10 divine skills. But God of Meng shook his head after some thoughts and said, "I don't believe in humans. Half a scroll of heaven augury spell can be wrong. This human was too weak. How could he turn the tides by himself? Ridiculous." "What is so ridiculous?" Just as Meng Ji was about to explain, 2 figures walked out of the forbidden area. Lu Li stood in front of Meng Ji and Yi Cha, looked at God of Meng and said, "Clan leader of God of Meng, I am Lu Li. I am 17 and I am at the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm. But I can defeat Patriarch Meng Hua. Why do you think I cannot reach the Earth Immortal realm? What makes you so sure that after I break through to the Earth Immortal level, I won't be able to sweep across the Central Province?" I don't know much about the feud between humans and other races, and I won't judge. But clan leader Yi and Meng Ji have seen what I have done over the years. They are not stupid, but they believe in me. I don't want to make any promises. I just want to say, give me a chance to prove myself, and give you guys a chance too. What if I'm really like what the Heaven Augury art says? Lu Li had to come out, or else the deserted world would be ruined. If Song Qi entered the northern desert, he would be waiting for death. For himself, for everyone, he had to take the risk. Lu Li's words embarrassed Meng Hua. But it was a fact that Lu Li had defeated him. Meng Hua couldn't say much. God of Meng fell into silence again. He stared at Lu Li and said nothing. Lu Li's words were sincere and tempting. The last sentence touched God of Meng's heart. Who didn't want to stay here for the rest of their lives? Who didn't want to take back their ancestral land, obtain endless resources, develop the Titan race, and rebuild their glory? The problem was, God of Meng didn't dare to take the risk. This was because if they were wrong, the Titan race would completely disappear from this world. Although the Titan race might have remnants in other places, this was definitely the strongest Titan race bloodline. They had been hiding in the deserted world for many years. Finally, they had developed a human sovereign realm warrior and several noble lord realm warriors. If he were to act rashly, the efforts of so many years of his ancestors would be destroyed. Seeing that God of Meng was interested, Luli thought about it and said again, Clan Leader Meng, do you think you can be safe by hiding in the deserted world? Since we can find this place, it's hard to guarantee that the great clans of the Central Plains won't find their way here. At that time, you should know the consequences. Also, after a pause, Luli continued before God of Meng could say anything. There are many mystical materials in the deserted world, but some of them must be in urgent need. Ally with us, and we can help you unify the deserted world and take over all the resources. Then, you can trade the mystical materials from the deserted world for the ones you need at the Central Plains. In this way, the Titan race can develop quickly. Maybe in decades there will be more human sovereign realm warriors. Lu Li's words once again tempted God of Meng and Meng Huo. That was right. They were in desperate need of mystical materials, or else Meng Huo would have made the breakthrough by now. There were many mystical materials in the deserted world. However, some rare mystical materials could only be found at the Central Plains, not the deserted world. They didn't trust outsiders, so they naturally didn't dare to trade with outsiders. Otherwise, it would bring about a fatal disaster. If Luli did the trade, then he wouldn't be exposed. Once they got the mystical materials they needed, the Titan race could have many more noble Lord Realm warriors and some human sovereign realm warriors. God of Meng still said nothing. Luli had said what he needed to say. He quieted down and waited for God of Meng's decision. Meng Ji wanted to say something, but Yi Cha stopped him. Yi Cha knew it was pointless to say anything more. It all depended on God of Meng's decision. Time moved on. Luli and the others showed no emotion, but they were getting more and more nervous. After the time for one incense stick to burn, God of Meng finally said something. He looked at Luli and said, "You said you can help us unify the deserted world?" Luli nodded. God of Meng sneered and said, "Okay, I will give you a chance. If you can kill the clan leader of the stellar race, I will give him a chance. If you can kill the clan leader of the stellar race, I will pledge allegiance to you and I will not go back on my word." Luli and the others were stunned. The clan leader of the stellar race was a human sovereign realm warrior. If they could kill a human sovereign realm warrior, why would they need to go to the Titan race? God of Meng snorted and said, "Since you are the chosen one according to the heaven augury spell, then you can create miracles. If you want me to pledge allegiance to you, you must show me your strength and means. I don't care how you do it. As long as you can kill the clan leader of the stellar race, the Titan race will be at your disposal. If you can't do it, then don't ever talk about this again. Let's go." With that said, God of Meng turned around and left in strides. Meng Huo and the others followed God of Meng without any hesitation. They were fast. In the time for more than a dozen breaths, they had disappeared into the mountains in the distance. Luli and the others looked at each other speechlessly, but it was understandable. No matter what Luli had said, God of Meng had his own pride and persistence. As Luli said, if Luli wanted him to pledge allegiance to God of Meng, he must demonstrate his strength and means. It was not easy for the Titan race to grow. God of Meng didn't dare to take the risk. If Luli could kill the clan leader of the stellar race, then it would prove that Luli was worthy of the Titan race's allegiance. God of Meng would take the risk. Clan leader of the stellar race. Chapter 437. They had screwed up. Everyone was down in the dump. God of Meng was resolute. There was no room for negotiation unless Luli killed the clan leader of the stellar race. Luli still had some hope. He asked Bai Qiuxue to ask Chiker for some information about the clan leader of the stellar race. The stellar race was the other most powerful race in the deserted world. It was easy to collect information. Chiker had a lot of it. The stellar race was one of the ancient races. In their heyday, they occupied the entire southeast of the Central Plains. This race had a very powerful divine ability that allowed them to teleport. They were named the Stellar Race because of their teleportation skill. Anyone of the Stellar Race that reached a certain realm could teleport. The powerful clan leader of the Stellar Race could travel more than 300 miles in an instant. He was almost unkillable. Lu Li's face turned pale when he heard the news. Even God of Meng and Lu Li together might not be able to kill the clan leader of the Stellar Race, let alone them. Let's go back. They had screwed up, but they had to move on. Lu Li was ready to go back to the northern desert. What if the northern desert was in danger after staying there for a while? Before they left, Chiker sent a message saying that God of Meng left an order before he left. Chiker was to guard the tunnel to the northern desert and Lu Li was given half a year. If Lu Li could not kill the clan leader of the Stellar Race in half a year, the tunnel must be destroyed. With Meng Ji and Yi Cha here, God of Meng trusted Lu Li for now or else the tunnel would be destroyed. Destroying it in half a year was for the safety of the deserted world. What if Lu Li colluded with some forces of the Central Plains to kill his way in? Half a year. The bitterness on Lu Li's face grew stronger. It seemed that the matter of the deserted world was doomed. He couldn't think of any other way, so he had to go back with the others. They teleported to the small world of green dwarfs, and Lu Li told the mammoth race to leave first. Then he called back the Bai family to guard the entrance, and activated the formation. Lu Li didn't worry about the mammoth race going back. He told Yi Cha to arrange it and they would go back the way they came. Lu Li said he would go back and think about what to do next before he let Meng Ji and the others know. He also said he would send some mystical materials, so that the mammoth race could train more noble Lord Realm warriors. Meng Ji and the others knew that there was no turning back now. Their expressions were ugly and they felt guilty, but they didn't know what to say. Lu Li brought Bai Qiushue back to the Heaven Prison Island and then teleported back to the Ling Empress City. The Ling Empress City was very peaceful. Currently there was no news. Song Qi should still be trapped in the danger zone. Lu Li was not in a good mood. He didn't waste time talking to the others and started to cultivate by himself. Firstly, he had to stabilize his realm. Secondly, he had to think about whether there was a way out of this predicament. He was not a person who gave up easily. If there was even the slightest possibility, he would fight for it. Bai Qiushue was sensible enough to leave Lu Li alone. She began to cultivate as well. She wanted to further study the enchantment. If she could reach the second level, she might be able to charm human sovereign realm warriors, and then she could help Lu Li conquer the deserted world. Bai Xiaoshuang had been in closed-door cultivation. Maybe she was mocked by Lu Li because her realm was too low. Ming Yu and the others did not know where Lu Li had been or what was going on. But they all felt something was off. Everyone began to cultivate. As long as Song Qi was still alive, he was like a sharp sword hanging over everyone's head at the northern desert. Great Patriarch of the Lu family gave Lu Li many mystical materials. The national treasury was filled with mystical materials and Xian crystals. Lu Li was not in need of mystical materials and Xian crystals for the time being. He told everyone to cultivate and not to worry about consuming mystical materials. 5 days had passed, but Lu Li couldn't come up with a solution. His realm, however, was stable. He decided not to think about the deserted world. That being said, there was still time. Lu Li didn't give up. He just focused on cultivation and didn't think about it. He began to study the mirror image profound meaning and speed profound meaning. He didn't have enough clones. If he could have more, he would be more powerful with the help of the speed profound meaning. If his clones were more real, maybe not even human sovereign realm warriors could kill him. He had just made a breakthrough in the speed profound meaning. It was unrealistic for him to make any progress in a short time. Lu Li focused on the mirror image profound meaning and the number of clones increased. Half a month later, Lu Li had more than 30 clones, doubling the number. A month later, he had more than 20 clones. He had reached the limit of the number of clones controlled by the demon. In total, he could have 66 clones. Lu Li was satisfied. He was dazzled by so many clones. It was enough if he could not see through them. If he could, what was the point even if he had 1,000? Luli decided to rest for a couple of days. He was a bit disappointed to learn that Bai Qiushue was in closed-door cultivation. He went to have a meal with Lu Feishue and played a game of chess. Luli didn't show many emotions, but as a woman, Lu Feishue was observant. She took a sip of tea and asked, "Is something bothering you?" Luli grinned and said, "Nothing. I just have some problems in cultivation." In terms of cultivation, Lu Feishue had no say. She was not very strong. She didn't ask any more questions. She set up the chess pieces and continued the game. Ha ha ha! Suddenly, a bell-like laughter rang out from outside. Following that, a figure flew out from one of the palaces, shooting straight into the sky. Luli walked out with curiosity. It was Bai Xiaoshuang. There was a 7-colored fate wheel under her feet. She was flying around in the sky. She was overjoyed, like a kid who had gotten a new toy. She is talented. Luli nodded. Bai Xiaoshuang had endless mystical materials, but she was not talented enough. No amount of mystical materials would help. Hunchback Tian tried more than 80 times without success. Of course, he didn't have the heaven serpent fruit either. Bai Xiaoshuang looked down at Luli. Her delicate nose twitched. She flew around Luli's head with a proud look on her face. Luli smiled and said, "Bai Xiaoshuang, why are you flying in the sky with your skirt on? Your bottom is exposed. Pink?" "Ah, Luli, you are doomed." Bai Xiaoshuang came back to her senses. She was so shy that she wanted to bury herself. Covering her face, she dashed into a side chamber in a blur and never came out again. Rustle, rustle, rustle. When Luli was about to go back and play chess with Lu Feishue, Madame Yen walked over and whispered to Luli, "Jiang Hong sent someone over. He said, Song Qi has come out from the dangerous place. He also killed dozens of scouts of the Jiang family. He is on the run and his whereabouts are unknown." What? What Luli worried about the most had happened. Song Qi had come out and ran away as fast as he could. He would try his best to avoid being hunted down by the Jiang family and then come to the northern desert. Ask Jiang Qiling to send over a human sovereign realm warrior? This thought flashed across Luli's mind, but he quickly rejected it. Jiang Wu was unhappy with him. He might not interfere with the pursuit of Jiang family patriarchs when Song Qi was at the northern central plains. But to send over a human sovereign realm warrior from the central plains to the northern desert? This had crossed Jiang Wu's bottom line. What was more, Jiang Wu didn't want Jiang Qiling to repeat the same mistake. If Luli was killed by Song Qi, Jiang Wu would be happy. Also, Luli was not a man who would ask for help easily. He already felt humiliated when he went to see Jiang Qiling last time. Jiang Wu's attitude had aroused his pride. Let's do it. A bold idea came to Luli's mind. After a while, he made up his mind and shouted. His face became ferocious like a beast in a hopeless situation. P.S. Chapter 5 is up. It has been a week. The old monster's promise has been fulfilled. He was exhausted and his neck was about to break, also. Thank you to Chidian Genesis and QQ Reading for the tips from the readers yesterday. Moi. Chapter 438. The Pavilion of Delicacy sent out many scouts, and so did many other forces to search for Song Qi all over the world. Unfortunately, it was as if Song Qi had vanished from the world. He never showed up again. The scouts were all at the Soul Pond realm or the Fate Wheel realm. Even the best ones at the Pavilion of Delicacy were at the Eternal realm at best, and they were few in number. How strong was the psychic power of a human sovereign realm warrior? If Song Qi had hidden himself well and kept a low profile, it would have been impossible for the scouts to find him. They could find Song Qi because there were many scouts. Song Qi was being careless. Jiang Qiling was panicking. Song-Chi was going to kill Luli. If he went out to sea, nobody would be able to find him. The next time he showed up would be at the northern desert. With Luli, Jiang Qiling went to make trouble, begging several patriarchs to go to the northern desert to protect Luli. But it was ridiculous. Patriarchs of the Pavilion of Delicacy, how honorable they were, had to protect an abandoned disciple of the Lu family, a despot of the northern desert? This time, the patriarchs of the Pavilion of Delicacy were determined. They wouldn't give in even if Jiang Qiling were to burn down their houses. What was more, Jiang Hua ordered secretly that nobody was allowed to go to the northern desert. Jiang Qiling was enraged. She left the island of Delicacy and wanted to go to the northern desert by herself. The Jiang family would be worried if she went. After all, the Pavilion of Delicacy had killed several patriarchs of the Song family. As long as Jiang Qiling went to the northern desert, there would be human sovereign realm warriors following her. However, as soon as Jiang Qiling left the island of Delicacy, she heard a noise behind her. Then a hand landed on the back of her head, knocked her out and brought her back to the island of Delicacy. What was more, Jiang Hua drugged Jiang Qiling to make her sleep for a month or two. Jiang Hua asked the patriarchs to call back the scouts and let Song-Chi go to the northern desert. Lu Li's identity was too sensitive. If he were not abandoned by the Lu family, Jiang Hua wouldn't have stopped him. Jiang Hua had no other way unless he wanted to become enemies with the Lu family. Becoming enemies with the Lu family would harm the Jiang family and the Pavilion of Delicacy. As the Pavilion Master, Jiang Hua could not let that happen. He had to watch Song-Chi go to the northern desert. He knew very well that her heart would be broken again after Luli was killed by Song-Chi. But it was better to get the pain over with. Before the relationship between Luli and Jiang Qiling started, Luli had to put an end to her. Once the scouts of the Ling Long Pavilion withdrew, the scouts of the other families also withdrew. Song-Chi, who had been hiding in the mountain carefully, heaved a sigh of relief. After confirming that the scouts had indeed retreated and that this was not a trap, Song-Chi increased his speed. In just 6 days they arrived at the seaside. Song-Chi was not careless. He dived into the sea and walked underwater. He knew that there were many powerful sea beasts in this area, including a few beast kings, but he couldn't care less. Right now, the only thought in his mind was to take revenge for the Song clansmen who were killed by the Blue Lion Palace. He wanted to take revenge for his wife, son, and daughter. He could not afford to offend the Lu family, and he was not sure that he could defeat the Palace of Blue Lions. Luli, the initiator of all this, did not have a human sovereign realm warrior with him. Naturally, he wouldn't give up such an opportunity. Even if he had to die a horrible death, he wouldn't hesitate. The northern desert was not peaceful lately. Nobody knew when, but there was a rumor that Luli had offended a big shot of the Central Plains. That big shot was crossing the sea to kill Luli. Such a big event would spread fast. In just a couple of days, the entire northern desert had heard of it. What Madame Yen and Yu Huashan did next made the northern desert even more panicked. Yu Huashan sent out people to arrest people. Anyone who dared to spread the rumor would be sent to jail. If the circumstances were serious, they would be killed on the spot. Madame Yen sent out a notice saying that it was just a rumor. She reassured the people of the northern desert. What was more strange was that Madame Yen said that Luli was studying the natural laws in the area of demons. She said that Luli was about to learn a horrifying profound meaning and that he would be able to reach the human sovereign realm soon. By then, even if powerful warriors came to the northern desert, Luli could kill them easily. This was a blatant lie. This was what many people of the northern desert were thinking. There would be no smoke if there was no smoke. If there was no such thing, why would Yu Huashan go and arrest people? Madame Yan's notice was trying to cover things up. Luli learning the natural laws? Could he be as powerful as a human sovereign realm warrior? This made the people of the northern desert even more suspicious. Luli was only 17 years old and only at the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm. No matter how powerful he couldn't be as powerful as a human sovereign realm warrior. Then there was another rumor. Someone did see Luli fly into a tornado at the area of demons. Not only did he survive, but he could break the tornado and make it collapse. The rumor became more and more serious. Yu Huashan arrested many people, but he couldn't stop the rumor. Many people and families began to panic. Many small families that didn't have enough resources started to spread the rumor, which made the northern desert even more turbulent. Recently, even some kids believed that a human sovereign realm warrior was coming to the northern desert to kill Luli. Madame Yan's notice and the rumor that Luli was cultivating at the area of demons were all meant to reassure people. If there was nothing wrong, why would people be reassured? Why would they try to cover things up? It meant the rumor was true. The empire of godly prowess had just been established, and not even a year had passed. What was more, the Emperor Luli was not a powerful warrior. He relied on his subordinates to build the foundation. Therefore, people of the northern desert didn't have a strong sense of unity. Many average people were in a constant state of anxiety. They were afraid that the northern desert that had just regained its peace would go into war again, and people would be plunged into misery and suffering. Yu Huashan had suppressed the rumor and nobody dared to talk about it on the surface. That being said, there were surging undercurrents. The small families that had their resources seized were eager to see the world in chaos, so they spread the rumor. The effect was great. In just over a dozen days, almost everyone at the northern desert knew about it. There were two things that could be confirmed. First, there was indeed a powerful warrior coming to the northern desert. Second, Luli was at the area of demons. Scouts of many families had sensed it. As a matter of fact, Luli had arranged these two things on purpose. It was Madame Yan and Yu Huashan who did it. Luli wanted the entire northern desert to know about this. Without his consent and Madame Yan's arrangement, how could the rumor spread so fast? Luli had his reasons for doing this. Since things could not be avoided, then he would have to fight with Song-Chi. But this time, Luli chose to fight with wits. He didn't have the ability to fight with brute force. He chose to kill Song-Chi with schemes. Killing with a borrowed knife. The one he wanted to borrow was sharp. The clan leader of the stellar race, at the human sovereign realm. All the arrangements were to lure Song-Chi to the deserted world, and then fight with the clan leader of the stellar race. Luli would be the one to reap the benefits. Only a human sovereign realm warrior could kill a human sovereign realm warrior. No matter how many noble lord realm warriors there were, they would all die when facing a human sovereign realm warrior. Luli didn't have any human sovereign realm warriors on his side, so he had to use one to kill Song-Chi. There was no doubt that the clan leader of the stellar race was a good weapon. That being said, it was not easy to kill with a borrowed knife. One wrong move and everyone would be killed by Song-Chi. Luli and Madame Yan discussed for a long time before they came to a decision. The rumor was only part of the plan. Madame Yan's nickname was Black Widow. She was not good at fighting or scheming, but she was good at scheming. Luli had gone to the area of demons and Madame Yan had to take care of the rest. Chapter 439. Song-Chi was fast. He traveled under the sea as fast as he could without any rest. But he couldn't stand it any longer, so he took a nap on a small island for a couple of hours. He knew he must seize every second and kill Luli before he could escape. What if the Pavilion of Delicacy sent out human sovereign realm warriors to protect Luli? What was more, there were too many Xian beasts in the sea. Many times, Song-Chi would be woken up by the chi and energy of Xian beasts not long after he slept on the island. He had to kill the Xian beasts and continue on his way. It would take at least 2 to 3 months to cross the sea by regular iron-armored ship. However, Song-Chi only spent 26 days to cross the sea. He was fast and he was determined to kill Luli. He wore a mask that was more advanced than the illusion's mask. It could cover up all his chi and energy and change his looks at any time. It was because of the mask that he could move under the nose of so many scouts at the northern Central Plains. Luli and Madame Yen had many scouts by the lake, but none of them could find Song-Chi. Song-Chi's psychic power was too strong. Song-Chi didn't kill any scouts because that would alert the enemy. He chose to sneak into the northern desert secretly. He wanted to find out Lu Li's whereabouts and the situation at the northern desert so that he could kill Lu Li in one strike. He went into a city and wandered around in a tavern. Through his powerful psychic power, he obtained a lot of information. Lu Li was the emperor of the northern desert. He had many noble Lord Realm warriors working for him, but none of them were at the human sovereign realm. The royal city of the Empire of Godly Prowess was at the Ling Empress City, but Lu Li was at the area of demons? There was a rumor at the northern desert that a mysterious powerful warrior was coming to the northern desert to kill Lu Li? Lu Li was learning the profound meaning and his abilities were close to that of the human sovereign realm? Yu Huashan was hunting down those who spread the rumor? This news made Song-Chi skeptical. After all, Song-Chi was a family patriarch of a 6th-rank family. He wouldn't believe a few people. He left the city quickly and went to a region city. He had a powerful mask that could cover up his human sovereign realm chi and energy. He disguised himself as a warrior and went into the city to gather more information. The information was the same. He could get it easily. Lu Li and Madame Yan's plan made the entire northern desert know about it. Soon, Song-Chi realized that the northern desert knew he was coming and Lu Li was at the area of demons. Song-Chi was bewildered in his heart. Since Lu Li knew he was coming, why didn't he run? And he even appeared in the lake of demons in broad daylight? Was he waiting for death? Song-Chi made up his mind after a short moment of consideration. He would go to the Ling Empress City first and capture several powerful subordinates and relatives of Lu Li. He would interrogate them to find out where Lu Li was and then take action. Song-Chi teleported openly. However, he didn't dare to teleport to the Ling Empress City. Instead, he teleported to a nearby city. After arriving at this big city, Song-Chi did not immediately head to the Ling Empress City. Instead, he spread out his spiritual will in the inn and started to gather information. In the Domain Lord's manor of this city, the Domain Lord was actually discussing him with a few warriors. I heard a rumor that the Ling Long Pavilion intends to send a human sovereign to help us kill Song-Chi. The Hall of Elders is having a meeting right now. I guess the human sovereign of the Pavilion of Delicacy will come in 4 or 5 days. Alright. As long as the Ren Huang of the Pavilion of Delicacy arrives, Song-Chi will be courting death if he dares to come to us. Of course, Miss Jiang has a very good relationship with the Great Emperor. How could she let the Great Emperor fall into danger? Song-Chi didn't hear the rest of the conversation. His face was clouded over. If the Pavilion of Delicacy really sent a human sovereign realm warrior, then he would have no chance to kill Lu Li. Let's go. He left the city and rushed toward the Ling Empress City. It was close to the Ling Empress City. In just an hour he had arrived. However, the Ling Empress City was sealed off and a simple shield was activated to cover the city. If he wanted to go in, he would have to break the shield. It would be easy for him to do that. But if Lu Li was not in the city, he would alert the enemy. The northern desert was Lu Li's territory. Once Lu Li was hiding in a small world, how could Song-Chi kill him? Therefore, Song-Chi had to use his psychic power to sneak into the Ling Empress City and start a secret investigation. His spiritual force was really strong. It easily penetrated the barrier and the barrier did not react at all. Nobody? What surprised Song-Chi was, there was no powerful warrior in the entire Ling Empress City, Not even one at the Eternal Realm. The imperial palace was empty except for some maids and servants. Was there a conspiracy? Or did they all run away? Song-Chi's eyes flickered. He kept on investigating and made sure that the human sovereign realm warrior from the Pavilion of Delicacy was coming. The warriors stationed at the teleportation formation had been discussing this in a low voice. Their leader also told them that if someone from the Central Plains was teleported over, they must be respectful because that person was a big shot from the Pavilion of Delicacy. Song-Chi was panicking. Once the human sovereign realm warrior from the Pavilion of Delicacy came, it would be hard for him to kill Luli. But he didn't know where Luli was. There was no big shot in the city. Where could he find Luli? In the end, Song-Chi had to go to the area of demons. He didn't know if the Pavilion of Delicacy would send a human sovereign realm warrior over. He didn't dare to take the risk. He had to go to the area of demons as soon as possible to find out the situation before making a decision. He didn't fly. Instead, he took the teleportation formation to the Thousand Island Lake. If he flew at full speed, he would make too much noise and attract attention. He was confident that nobody could see through his mask except for human sovereign realm warriors, who would notice him if he disguised himself as a warrior of the Fate Wheel realm. He teleported to the Heaven Prison City and kept a low profile. Every time he teleported, he would pay Xian crystals and disguise himself as a warrior of the Chamber of Commerce. Nobody noticed him. Have you heard? The Emperor was at the area of demons last night. He cracked the tornado with one move. I think he has learned a profound meaning. Wow, that is impressive. The Emperor is only 17 years old, and he has learned a profound meaning. I think his abilities are comparable to human sovereign realm warriors. Don't say too much about this. If General Yu's people know, something bad will happen. Song-Chi learned about this as soon as he arrived at the Heaven Prison City. Not just a few people were talking about it. He could hear many people talking about it with his psychic power. Area of demons? Okay. A glint of killing intent rose in Song-Chi's eyes. He left the city quietly. Then, he found a deserted place and dived into the lake, sneaking toward the Lake of Demons. As soon as Song-Chi left the city, Du Zheng walked out from the heaven-punishing auction house. He looked at the city gate indifferently and said with a cold smile, "Okay, the fish has taken the bait. Luli, the rest is up to you." Du Zheng crushed a jade talisman. He didn't go over to check. He didn't know what Luli's plan was for. All he knew was that Luli could create miracles many times. Maybe Song-Chi wouldn't come back this time. As for how Du Zheng knew it was Song-Chi, it was simple. Chapter 440. Above the area of demons, Luli was in the tornado. He flew along the tornado on his fate wheel. There were many scouts hiding nearby, but they were well hidden. There was an iron-armored ship near the tornado with only one person on board, Yi Cha. The other patriarchs of the Cyan Phoenix race wanted to come as well, but Luli refused. Yi Cha was as fast as a human sovereign realm warrior, and the other patriarchs were slower. They would only be courting death if they came. Luli had been studying profound meanings these days. He sat on the fate wheel with his legs crossed, like a monk in meditation. He had several jade talismans in his hand. At that moment, one of them broke. He opened his eyes and looked at the jade talisman and then at Yi Cha on the iron-armored ship. Being stared at by Luli, Yi Cha tensed up. He used psychic power to check the lake area at once. Whoosh! After a while, he felt worried. He flew down and dashed into the lake. Then, he sat in the lake with his legs crossed and tried to sense the surroundings. His psychic power was not as strong as Song-Chi's. When Song-Chi locked onto him, Yi Cha might not be able to sense Song-Chi yet. But Yi Cha could sense the ripples in the lake. Song-Chi would definitely come down from the lake. Yi Cha would know as soon as there were any unusual movements in the lake. Luli was nervous as well. A human sovereign realm warrior sneaking over could kill him and Yi Cha in an instant. Luli closed his eyes again. This time, he was not trying to study profound meanings. He was trying to sense the ripples and abnormalities in the space around him. He used himself as bait to lure Song-Chi into the small world. If he couldn't enter in time and was enveloped by Song-Chi's force field, then everything would be over. Time moved on. The Heaven Prison City was not far away from the area of demons. Song-Chi was fast, but he slowed down as he got closer to the area of demons. He used psychic power to search for Luli. Gradually, he was getting closer and closer to the tornado. Finally, he scanned over Yi Cha with psychic power and then saw Luli, who was sitting in the tornado with his legs crossed. Luli! A glint of coldness rose in Song-Chi's eyes. Killing intent and horrifying chi spread out from him. His psychic power was so strong that he could detect Luli even with the illusion's mask. He had seen Luli's portrait and he was sure that Luli was not wearing a mask. But Yi Cha and Luli opened their eyes almost at the same time. Yi Cha sensed the unusual movement in the water and Luli sensed a hint of killing intent. Whoosh, without any hesitation, the two of them rushed into the lake. Luli crushed a jade talisman in his hand. The scouts lurking around started to move. All of them dashed into the water. 3 Eternal Realm warriors were aiming at Song-Chi in the lake. Still want to escape? Song-Chi's expression turned cold. He could no longer suppress his killing intent, and it was released violently. He wouldn't care even if there were human sovereign realm warriors ambushing him. He would kill Luli even at the cost of his life. Xiao! The warriors lying in ambush nearby shot out their Xian energy attacks one after another. 3 Eternal Realm warriors even released their bloodline divine skills. One of the Yu family elders released a fire dragon that shot straight at Song-Chi. Scram! Song-Chi angrily waved his hand and shot out a few beams of dark force, turning a few scouts into minced meat. With a glare, an invisible force field appeared and froze the 3 Eternal Realm warriors in the water. Song-Chi waved his hand again, and the 3 Eternal Realm warriors burst into blood mist as well. There were still some scouts coming over, but Song-Chi didn't have time to worry about them. Yi Cha and Luli had reached the bottom of the lake towards a huge whirlpool. Song-Chi checked with his psychic power. The whirlpool was bottomless, and it might be connected to another small world. How could he let them escape? Song-Chi's momentum was at its peak, and he was moving at the top of his speed. In the blink of an eye, he was close to the whirlpool. At the same time, Luli and Yi Cha had rushed into the whirlpool and disappeared from Song-Chi's psychic power. Where else can we go? Song-Chi sneered and dashed toward the whirlpool. Luli and the others had just gone in so they couldn't destroy the tunnel. Song-Chi didn't mind being trapped in the small world for the rest of his life if he could kill Luli. With a flash of white light, Song-Chi suddenly felt he was surrounded by green mist. All he could see was green smoke. He couldn't see anything clearly. When he used psychic power to check, he realized he could only reach as far as 300 feet. He was surrounded by green mist. He took a deep breath and felt something was wrong. Poison! Song-Chi's expressions changed. The poison didn't have much effect on him. The thing was, the poison could block psychic power. Luli and the others would take the chance to run away. The poison mist was actually a kind of formation bought from the Chamber of Commerce of Delicacy at the cost of 10 million Xian crystals. It was set up by Madame Yen so that Luli and Yi Cha would have enough time to get to the entrance of the deserted world. Otherwise, Luli, the bait, would become a dead fish. Luli and Yi Cha were rushing toward the tunnel at full speed. They believed that Song-Chi would find it soon and come back. Song-Chi rushed out of the poison mist and used psychic power to check. But he didn't see Yi Cha or Luli. He had to fly around randomly and look around. Soon, he found a warrior of the Bai family. Naturally, Luli had kept this warrior alive on purpose. With a flash, Song-Chi grabbed the man's neck and started interrogating him. The interrogation went well. The warrior confessed everything. He said that this was a world of green dwarfs, and it was not a large one. There was a passage to another small world, and there were several places where people could hide. Song-Chi killed the warrior after he finished his interrogation. Then he rushed toward the entrance of the deserted world as fast as he could. He believed that unless Luli was an idiot, he wouldn't stay in this small world. This place was too small to hide for long. As he expected, when he arrived at the entrance of the deserted world, he happened to notice the fluctuation of the teleportation formation down there. Luli and Yi-Cha had just disappeared. There were 2 more warriors guarding here. They were trying to activate the 2 formations in a hurry. Swish, swish. After killing the 2 of them, Song-Chi rushed into the teleportation restriction. What upset him happened again. As soon as he entered the deserted world, he found that he was still surrounded by miasma which blocked his psychic power. When he flew out and checked with psychic power, he lost sight of Luli and Yi-Cha again. He was surrounded by a strange race, all of them hag race. Whoosh whoosh! Skulls flew over. Many of the hag race's eyes glowed as they tried to charm Song-Chi. Song-Chi was enraged and began a bloody massacre. He didn't do anything else. He just waved his hands and many of the hag race were blasted into dust. The hag race was scared and they fled to all directions. Song-Chi didn't go after them. He caught a flying hag and asked about Lu Li's whereabouts and the situation in the deserted world. The flying hag spoke in the ancient language. Song-Chi was from the Central Plains and the Song family had a history of thousands of years, so he knew something about the ancient language. He learned from the flying hag that Lu Li, the devil, was close to a large race here, the stellar race. Lu Li must have gone to the stellar race to seek refuge. The hag race said that Lu Li was a devil because hag race said that Lu Li had killed many of their people and that he was their sworn enemy. Song-Chi didn't think too much into it. As far as he could tell, how big could a large race in a small world be? They wouldn't have many powerful warriors. Song-Chi caught another hag and interrogated him. He got the same answer and asked for the direction of the stellar race. Then he went after them. After Song-Chi left, Bai Qiushue and Chi-Ker walked out from a mountain in the distance. They were relieved. Song-Chi had successfully lured the stellar race to the deserted world. What happened next was out of their control. It was up to fate to see what would happen. P.S. I can't stand it anymore. Update as usual. 3 chapters a day and 4 on weekends. Update at 6 p.m. every day. Chapter 441. In the middle of the deserted world, the stellar race occupied the most treasured land, the stellar mountain. The spiritual chi in the mountain was rich. There were many mines at the foot of the mountain where many mystical materials could be excavated. A rare elixir grew on the peak of the mountain all year round. In the beginning, dozens of races had their eyes on the stellar mountain. The stellar mountain wasn't originally called the stellar mountain. It was occupied by another powerful race. As time went on, the races of the deserted world fought for resources. Only 18 of the dozens of races remained. The stellar race sat on the mountain and watched the tigers fight. Eventually, they became the biggest winner and occupied the stellar mountain. Later on, the Titan race tried to invade the stellar mountain several times. However, many powerful warriors of the stellar race could teleport so they could not be killed. On the other hand, the stellar race could go to the rear of the Titan race and kill civilians of the Titan race. Therefore, the stellar race had become the king of the deserted world. If it weren't for the fact that the Titan race had human sovereign realm warriors, the stellar race would have unified the deserted world. In the wilderness, 2 people were flying fast. Lu Li and Yi-Cha flew together, which was Yi-Cha's request. If Song-Chi caught up with them, Yi-Cha could stall him for a while so that Lu Li could escape. They flew toward the stellar race in a straight line. Luli didn't release his fate wheel, and Yi Cha carried him. Yi Cha was full of vigor along the way, which attracted the attention of many races. But he was so fast that many races didn't even have time to react before they disappeared into the distance. Yi Cha was doing this on purpose. He was trying to lure Song Qi over by leaking his whereabouts. If Song Qi didn't come after them, then their plan would be pointless. The entrance to the deserted world was 2 days' journey from the stellar race. That was if Yi Cha flew at the top of his speed. If he took an iron-armored ship, it would take him at least 10 days or half a month. Yi Cha didn't take a moment to rest. He flew at the top of his speed regardless of whether there were races or tribes in front of him. Whoosh, half a day later, some strange people appeared in midair. Yi Cha and Lu Li's reckless flying had angered the major races of the deserted world. Powerful warriors of those races were here to stop them. 3 strange people were intercepting them. They were more than 3 feet tall with 3 horns on their heads. They were covered in white hair and their eyes were blood red. They looked more like 3 white hairs of blood apes. The white-haired man let out a shrill howl from afar, mumbling something that no one knew what he was saying. Yi Cha understood. He explained to Lu Li in a low voice, "They say this is the territory of the white hair race, and they want us to get out." Lu Li thought about it. Seeing that the white-haired man didn't take action right away, Lu Li said to Yi Cha, "Tell them that we are friends of Hua, the clan leader of the stellar race. Hua has invited us to be his guests. We will pass by them and not do anything else." Yi Jie stopped in midair and explained to the white hair race. His tone was very polite. An important figure from the white hair race spoke again, expressing his disbelief. For the races here, humans were the worst enemy. Lu Li appeared to be a pure-blooded human. He could not be an honored guest of the stellar race. After Yi Cha finished, Lu Li added, "Tell them that I am also of a special race called the Blood Race." Lu Li released Blood Claw on his arm. The white hair race was hesitating. They were dependent on the stellar race. If they offended an honored guest of the clan leader of the stellar race, they would not be able to bear the consequences. Yi Cha was of the Cyan Phoenix race, which was easy to recognize. After a while, a white-haired man said that he could let them pass but they had to keep an eye on them. Lu Li had no objection. They didn't want to make trouble here. They were just passing by. Yi Cha flew Lu Li in a straight line with the 3 white-haired men following him. They didn't stop until they were out of the territory of the white hair race. "Wait." Lu Li asked Yi Cha to stop. He told Yi Cha to keep an eye on Song Qi who was behind them. He told Yi Cha that there was a powerful human warrior following them here to take over the territory of the deserted world. The white hair race should be careful. With that said, Yi Cha flew away with Lu Li. They didn't care whether the white hair race would stop Song Qi or not. They just wanted to say a few words. It would be best if they could stop Song Qi. Along the way, they could enter the territories of strange races. Lu Li and the others used the same trick. They pretended that Yi Cha and Yi Cha were from strange races, not humans, and that they were honored guests of the stellar race. They were going to the stellar mountain. Every time, Yi Cha would make it clear that there was a powerful human warrior following them. As for whether the races would stop them or not, it would be up to fate. Bang bang bang, Lu Li and Yi Cha's plan worked. An hour after they left the white hair race, Song Qi caught up with them. The white hair race was on high alert. 3 noble Lord Realm warriors flew up at once and some Eternal Realm warriors flew up as well. But Song Qi was at the human sovereign realm, so the white hair race didn't act rashly. They only asked why Song Qi trespassed into the deserted world and what he was up to. Leave as soon as possible. Song Qi was focused on killing Lu Li. The white hair race wouldn't care. The white hair race asked Lu Li in the ancient language if they were passing by. His tone was not pleasant. Needless to say, the result was that the 2 sides fought over a disagreement. The white hair race suffered. The 3 noble Lord Realm Warriors were killed by Song-Chi, and many of the Eternal Realm Warriors were killed as well. Song-Chi captured one of the white hair race and asked about Lu-Li and Yi-Cha. He learned that Lu-Li and Yi-Cha had just left and they were honored guests of the stellar race. They were on their way to the Stellar Mountain. Song-Chi didn't stop or think too much after he got the information. He chased after Lu-Li in anger. He was more certain that Lu-Li was going to the stellar race to seek refuge. Song-Chi was enraged by what happened later. Along the way, he was intercepted by other races. He was interrogated several times, and they all stated that Lu-Li was an honored guest of the stellar race. Song-Chi also learned that the stellar race had a human sovereign realm warrior. He was worried but relieved at the same time. No wonder Lu-Li wanted to escape here. Why did he want the protection of the stellar race? The stellar race had a human sovereign realm warrior. Song-Chi made up his mind. He would fight to the death even if the stellar race had a human sovereign realm warrior. This was his only chance. The Pavilion of Delicacy would send another human sovereign realm warrior soon. If he couldn't kill Lu-Li this time, he would have to die in this small world or at the northern desert. Song-Chi didn't ask any more questions. He flew to the Stellar Mountain as fast as he could. He killed all the strange races that stood in his way. What Song-Chi didn't know was, every time he started a fight, he would send out a message asking for help. In the distance, the alarm at the Stellar Mountain kept ringing. A human sovereign realm warrior was killing his way over with his sword pointed at the Stellar Mountain. Of course, another message was sent to the Stellar Mountain. It was said that 2 strange races were honored guests of the stellar race, and they were going to the Stellar Mountain as well. But the message was ignored by the stellar race. They didn't have the time to care about the honored guests. Chapter 442. The Stellar Mountain was large and steep. Nearby, there were also 12 peaks that stood evenly in the surroundings, like 12 generals surrounding a supreme emperor. Basically, the stellar race lived on the Stellar Mountain and the 12 mountains around it. There was a huge city on the Stellar Mountain and 12 other cities on the other 12 mountains. As the uncrowned king of the deserted world, the stellar race had been reproducing fast. At the moment, there were at least hundreds of thousands of people in the 13 cities. There were at least 1,000 powerful warriors that could teleport. If it were not for the fact that the number of human sovereign realm warriors was small and God of Meng could stall the stellar race, the deserted world would have been unified. 2 days later, at night, Lu-Li and the others finally stepped into the territory of the stellar race. Lu-Li took out the map to check and decided to take a detour. They were not honored guests of the stellar race. There must be scouts all over the territory of the stellar race right now. If they dashed in, the clan leader of the stellar race would tear them apart. The 2 of them quickly flew to the left and found a mountain range. They hid in a hidden cave and waited quietly. They had done all they could and made all the arrangements. What came next was luck. If Song-Chi could not arrive at the Stellar Mountain or see through their plan, Lu-Li would have to wait for his death. Time moved on. Lu-Li and Yi-Cha were getting more and more nervous. Song-Chi was faster than Yi-Cha. He should have caught up with them by now. It had been more than 2 hours and there was no sign of him. Yi-Cha and Lu-Li were worried. If Song-Chi didn't come, then all their efforts would be in vain. Another 2 hours passed. They were getting restless. Yi-Cha thought about it and said, "Young master, I will go and have a look." Lu-Li nodded and said, "Be careful." Yi-Cha flew out in a gust of wind. Lu-Li hid in the cave alone. He had no psychic power so he could not check. He had to close his eyes to sense the fluctuations in space. Squeak, squeak. An hour later, he heard a strange sound from his sleeve. He opened his eyes and looked into his sleeves in surprise. A small head poked out from Lu-Li's sleeve, and then jumped onto his shoulder in a white blur. It then intimately kissed Lu-Li's face with its mouth. "Haha, Xiao Bai, you're awake." Lu-Li was overjoyed. Little White had been sleeping for a long time and he missed it dearly. Little White was just as happy to see Luli. It jumped up and down on Luli's body, scratching him with its little paws. Whoosh! Not long afterward, there came a noise from outside. Luli asked Little White to go back and gave it some soul crystals. Little White began to chew on them happily. A shadow came into being in front of Luli. It was Yicha. Delighted, he shouted, "Let's go! Song-Chi has already started fighting with the stellar race." I saw hundreds of dead bodies of the stellar race. Song-Chi and the elites of the stellar race were fighting fiercely. I did not dare to get close. All right. Luli was invigorated. This fight was not only about his life, but also about Yicha, Bai Qiuxue, Mingyu and the others. One wrong step and everyone would fall into a bottomless abyss. Song-Chi is very powerful. Yicha frowned and said, Song-Chi is at the initial stage of the Renhuang realm. The leader of the stellar race should be a Renhuang as well. But I don't think the leader of the stellar race is a match for Song-Chi. Why? Luli was confused. They were both at the initial stage of the human sovereign realm, and the stellar race had the ability to teleport. How could they not be a match for Song-Chi? Right, Luli remembered something and yelled, "Is it the bloodline of Wood origin? I once fought with people from the Song family. The Song family has a Wood origin bloodline that can release a sky full of purple vines to trap their enemies." Yes. Yicha nodded and said, "I watched from the distance and saw the purple vines all over the sky. Many of the stellar race were trapped and could not teleport. I think the vines can bind space or seal Xian energy. Otherwise, they would have been able to teleport. I checked dozens of bodies of the stellar race. They were all dried up as if their life essence had been sucked away." That is right. Luli thought about it and said, "The bloodline skill of the Song family can suck away the life essence of warriors." Yu Huashan was almost sucked dry. The teleportation of the stellar race was amazing. Luli had thought that the stellar race clan leader could kill Song-Chi easily or make both sides suffer. It seemed that things were beyond Luli and Yicha's expectations. The bloodline of Wood origin could restrain teleportation? If the stellar race clan leader was killed by Song-Chi, then the plan would be pointless. Luli thought about it for the time for half an incense stick to burn before he said, "Clan leader Yi, go to the hag race and bring Qiuxiu out. If my jade talisman of life is broken, destroy the passageway at once." Yicha paused for a second before he understood and said, "Saint Lord, let's go out together. If we destroy the passageway, we will be safe no matter who wins the fight between Song-Chi and the stellar race clan leader." "We will not be safe." Luli shook his head and said, "There must be a passageway to the deserted world. How can there be only one passageway in such a big world? If we destroy the passageway and Song-Chi is still alive, he will go back to the northern desert sooner or later." Actually, Luli had thought about destroying the passageway and Madame Yen mentioned it as well. But Luli didn't agree. It was clear that Song-Chi wanted him dead. If Song-Chi didn't die this time, then nobody in the deserted world could stop him. Sooner or later, he could go back to the northern desert and continue his killing spree. Next time, he wouldn't be so lucky. On the other hand, if Luli was killed by Song-Chi and the passageway was destroyed, then Song-Chi would never go back to the northern desert. After all, he had his revenge, and he had to go all the way to the northern desert. What if he was killed by the powerful warriors of the Pavilion of Delicacy? Luli wanted to kill the stellar race clan leader and Song-Chi. This time, he was not only borrowing the stellar race clan leader but also Song-Chi. Therefore, Luli wanted to take the risk and find a chance. When the two of them were injured, Luli would find a chance to kill them both. If he could kill the two of them, not only would the crisis be over, the deserted world would be within his reach. Of course, as tempting as the reward was, the risk was proportional. One wrong move and Luli would be turned into ashes. No. Yi Cha shook his head and said with determination, if we die together. Saint Lord, you don't have psychic power. Song Chi will notice you before you can get close. You cannot do it alone. Luli thought it made sense. Still, he shook his head and said, what about Qiushue? What if we fail? Song Chi will go back to the northern desert through the passageway. That will be a bloodbath. No, Yi Cha shook his head and said, Song Chi is walking into our trap step by step. He is afraid of the human sovereign realm warriors of the Pavilion of Delicacy. Even if we die, he will leave immediately and run back to the Central Plains. You are his main target. He will not waste time to kill others. Let's take the risk. Saint Lord, maybe we can win. Okay. Lu Li's eyes glowed coldly. He made up his mind and no longer hesitated. Let's go. Chapter 443. The Stellar Mountain was bustling with activity. Almost all the powerful warriors of the stellar race had come out. The ordinary citizens were also mobilized, and the experts of the nearby large clans were also urgently mobilized. The battlefield was 30 miles to the south of the 12 mountains. It was a huge mountain with at least thousands of stellar race warriors. In the sky, the clan leader of the stellar race, Hua, was fighting against Song Chi with a group of warriors. Hua was flashing around in midair while Song Chi was entangled by purple vines. There were more than a dozen powerful warriors of the stellar race, and some from other races. They were attacking the purple vines with their own means. The stellar race was similar to humans in appearance and body shape, but there was a vertical mark between their eyebrows. It felt like it had 3 eyes. It was because of this vertical scar that the stellar race had the ability to teleport. The stellar race cultivated Xian energy and used weapons. The clan leader and 2 patriarchs of the stellar race had learned profound meanings. That being said, the 2 patriarchs' profound meanings were of low levels and could not enhance their abilities by much. Hua had been holding back because Song Chi gave him a sense of danger. He didn't dare to take any rash actions. He asked the other powerful warriors of the stellar race to find out more about Song Chi. Admittedly, the Wood origin bloodline was powerful. Not only could it attack and trap people, it could also be used for defense. At the moment, Song Chi was entangling himself in layer after layer of vines. No matter how many people were attacking, they could not break through the vines and reach Song Chi. Even if the vines were torn apart, Song Chi could make more. What was more, Song Chi's vines seemed to be able to extend endlessly. Hundreds of vines were reaching down, entangling dozens of stellar race warriors. Once they were entangled, the fate of the average stellar race would be sealed. The vines glowed in purple, and they would be unable to use Xian energy. The demon trapping chains of the Lu family had the same effect. Many of the stellar race could teleport, but without Xian energy, there was nothing they could do. They could only watch as their vitality was sucked away. Give me Lu Li or I will wipe out the stellar mountain. Song Chi's voice was filled with killing intent. He was using the ancient language, but it was not standard. Hua and the other stellar race warriors were confused. They were enraged to see dozens of stellar race warriors screaming in pain and then being thrown out as dried corpses. More than a dozen patriarchs of the star race took action. They did not dare to get close to the vines, but they shot out Xian force attacks at the vines from all directions. Hua finally made his move. A huge black saber appeared in his hand. The saber shone brightly, giving off a powerful aura. It was a saint-class weapon. He swung his long saber down, and a shocking saber light tore through the sky, causing cracks to appear in the space. The saber light flashed with golden light, and it was obvious that it contained the power of metal. Its destructive power was astonishing. Hua had comprehended a 4th-rank ultimacy of the Gold Series, but he did not take out his saber. Now that dozens of his clansmen had died, he could no longer sit still. As for the Luli that Song-Chi mentioned, he didn't understand at all, and he wouldn't think too much about it. Back then, the Starry Sky race was also slaughtered and almost wiped out by the human race. There was an irreconcilable hatred between them. Now that Song-Chi had killed so many members of the stellar race, he could not care less about anything else. He had to kill Song-Chi first. Boom, boom, boom. Hua's move was clearly more powerful than the others. The other patriarchs of the stellar race and the powerful warriors of the special races could only cut off more than 10 layers of vines at best. Hua's move, on the other hand, cut through the layers of vines easily. In the blink of an eye, more than 30 layers of vines had been cut off. Unfortunately, Song-Chi had already made 40 or 50 layers of vines, but the energy of the saber light was depleted soon. Keep attacking. Aim at one spot and kill him. Hua was cheered up. As long as they could cut off the vines, they could kill Song-Chi easily with so many of them. He kept on attacking. The patriarchs of the stellar race gathered together and attacked at one spot. Boom, 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 layers of vines were torn apart, and the sky was filled with pieces of vines. Song-Chi's speed of making vines could not keep up with the others' speed. Okay. The patriarchs of the stellar race were getting more and more excited. They moved closer to Song-Chi, trying to break the vines so that Hua could kill Song-Chi in one move. Right at that moment, Song-Chi snorted. Seeing that the stellar race didn't do anything, Song-Chi thought Hua had made up his mind to protect Luli. Song-Chi flew into a rage. An invisible chi and energy spread out and the space within a radius of more than 3,000 feet froze. Song-Chi had activated the force field that only human sovereign realm warriors had. Force field was a miraculous thing. It was similar to a profound meaning of space, which could confine space. Warriors at the initial stage of the human sovereign realm could confine the space within a radius of more than 3,000 feet. Nobody below the human sovereign realm could move, unless there was a warrior of the noble lord realm who was proficient in profound meaning of space. Warriors at the Black Tortoise Sea and Soul Pond were like children. Warriors at the Fate Wheel realm were like teenagers. Warriors at the noble lord realm were like youth. Warriors at the human sovereign realm were like adult. Human sovereign realm warriors were the rulers of humans. Noble lords were just regular dukes. How could noble lords resist the will of a human sovereign realm warrior? Force field was the most horrifying thing about a human sovereign realm warrior. As soon as Song-Chi released his force field, the more than a dozen patriarchs of the stellar race and some other races were all confined. How dare you? Hua was enraged and frightened at the same time. Those patriarchs were more than 3,000 feet away from Song-Chi. Because they were having such a good time, as the number of vines decreased, the distance between them was shortened. Song-Chi and Hua were within 3,000 feet. Swish, swish, vines flew out and entangled the patriarchs of the stellar race. Suppressed by the force field, they could not teleport away. They could only watch helplessly as they were entangled. Whoosh, Hua took action. Many rays of sword light shot out. At the same time, he also activated his force field to slow down the speed of the vines and save the patriarchs of the stellar race. The speed of the vines was indeed slowed down. However, there were too many of them. Song-Chi kept on shooting out vines to pull the patriarchs toward him. Hua himself was slowed down in Song-Chi's force field as well. Seeing the elders being pulled toward Song-Chi one by one, Hua panicked. Those patriarchs were the backbone of the stellar race. Whether they could reach the human sovereign realm or not would depend on them. If all of them died, the stellar race would be doomed. There were too many vines. What was more, those patriarchs could not get out of the force field. Even if he could cut the vines and save some patriarchs, so what? Soon, they would be entangled again. A glint of ruthlessness rose in Hua's eyes. He decided to risk his life. The only way to save the patriarchs was to kill Song-Chi. Human, die! He turned into a gust of wind and dashed toward the vines. Instead of shooting out rays of sword light, he hacked at the vines with his saber. The power of the saber light formed by dark force was limited. If he wanted to unleash the full power of the profound meaning of gold, he had to fight hand to hand. Saint-level Xian artifact could only show its power by hacking. Hoi, as expected, he dashed into the vines and hacked at them casually with his saint-level saber. Those tough vines were cut down as easily as ordinary vines. Hua swung his saber at Song-Chi with unstoppable force. Nice. Chapter 444. Bang, bang, bang. The vines in the sky were broken into pieces. Every time Hua swung his battle sword, the void was torn apart. Hua was unstoppable. Countless vines tried to entangle him but could not get close to him. His divine weapon glowed brightly and a black air current flowed around it. A strange aura was emitting from it. It was terrifying. Song-Chi was surrounded by more than 10 layers of vines. In less than a minute, Hua had destroyed more than 30 layers. His murderous intent was locked onto Song-Chi. Song-Chi had already killed 7 or 8 patriarchs of the stellar race. He had also killed several experts from other races. He did not dare to continue anymore. Hua was about to attack. He retreated in a flash and controlled more vines to form a defensive layer in front of him. His vines were not endless. They needed to absorb a martial artist's life force to condense. Along the way, he had killed many members of the stellar race and absorbed a lot of life force. That was why he could release the vines for a few hours without using his own life force. He retreated quickly and continued to release vines to block Hua. When he felt that there was no more danger, he started to deal with the remaining elders of the stellar race. What's more, he released many vines and swept them downwards. They entangled the members of the stellar race and then killed them, absorbing their life force. Due to the difference in cultivation level, his vines were absorbing the life force at a terrifying speed. The elders of the stellar race might be able to hold on for a while, but the members of the stellar race would turn into jerky in a few breaths' time. Die, die, die. Hua was going crazy. He watched as the members of the stellar race were killed and turned into jerky. Yet, he could not get close to Song-Chi. He was getting more and more furious. These elders and the members of the stellar race were the hope of the stellar race. His own lifespan was about to run out. Once these people died and his lifespan ran out, the entire stellar race would be torn into pieces by the Titan race. They would be exterminated. Roar! The clan leader of the stellar race roared. Blood dripped down from the vertical scar on his forehead. The blood dripped down from his forehead and turned into a blood mist that enveloped his entire body. He was covered in blood. Clan leader! A patriarch of the starry sky race who was still alive shouted in the ancient language. The others did not know, but the patriarch knew that this was the secret skill of Star. By burning his origin blood, he could temporarily increase his power. Beast sovereigns had origin blood essence. Powerful warriors could also refine origin blood essence. Some of the ancient races actually knew this kind of secret technique. Origin blood essence was a martial artist's purest and most powerful source of strength. It was used to protect one's life and put one's life on the line. Hua had refined 3 drops of origin blood essence over the years, and he had used all of them. Even if they could win this battle, Hua would eventually die of old age. That was why the elder was howling in grief. Song-Chi felt that something was amiss. After a few drops of blood appeared in the starry sky, his entire aura surged. He felt as though he had broken through from the early stage of the human sovereign realm to the middle stage. Although it was only a minor level of difference, when one reached the Renhuang plane, the difference in combat ability would be like heaven and earth. This was because human emperors had their own domains. The domains of those at the early stage of human emperor realm and those at the middle stage of human emperor realm were different. Not good. Song-Chi sensed the space around him, and his expression changed again. Because the field had become stronger, his speed had decreased greatly. As a result, the speed of star transformation increased tremendously. Bang bang bang! Hua turned into a bloody man. He waved his divine weapon and swept everything in his way. All the vines in his way were easily torn apart. His speed increased tremendously. Like a sharp sword, he dashed towards Song-Chi. Burning origin blood essence? Song-Chi knew about this secret skill. Unfortunately, he did not know how to use it. Only the ancient races knew about this secret skill. Seeing that Hua was approaching him rapidly, Song-Chi realized that no matter how many vines he released, he would be able to tear them apart. A fierce look appeared in Song-Chi's eyes. He was ready to give it his all. That's right. Before this, he had not used his full strength because he had never released his profound meaning. He had been hiding his strength for this moment. The ring on his hand flashed, and many black needles appeared. The black needles were glistening. It was obvious that they had been soaked in poison. Swish, swish, he threw all the needles out. However, he did not throw them at Hua. Instead, he swept them at the vines around him. The black needles entered the vines and disappeared. Buzz! His ring kept flashing. He took out more and more black needles and shot them into the vines. Clearly, his profound meaning had merged with his bloodline skill. Otherwise, the needles would not have disappeared into the vines. At the same time, the vines on the outside started dancing. The vines intertwined and formed a huge cage, trapping Hua and Song-Chi. Hua was about to reach Song-Chi. His psychic power was locked on Song-Chi. Of course, he knew what Song-Chi was up to. But what other choice did he have? He had burned his origin blood essence, and could only hold on for the time for 3 incense sticks to burn. After that, he would be extremely weak. If he could not kill Song-Chi now, the stellar race would be doomed. Bang! Hua finally broke the last few layers of vines. He flew out like a blood-red beast. He hacked at Song-Chi's head, who was standing in the middle of the cage. Boom, 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 he used all his strength in this attack. The entire space was shaking. As his saber hacked down, the space was torn apart. The sound of the saber cutting through the air was so loud that it could crack rocks and shatter eardrums. The saber glowed in gold. That was the power of gold that could tear apart some strong defenses. Ha ha! Suppressed by Hua's force field, Song-Chi's speed was greatly reduced. He could no longer run away. But he was not worried at all. He sneered, waved his hand and shouted, "Taste my profound meaning, violent storm!" Whoosh, 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 all of a sudden, a gale sprang up in the cage. The force must have reached the level of a tornado. Within the cage made of vines, countless needles shot out, covering the entire space within the cage like a downpour. Song-Chi's profound meaning was of the wind family, which was perfectly integrated with his bloodline. These thin needles were specially made by him. They were released with the help of the wind profound meaning. The materials of the thin needles were made from the materials of the sacred grade Xian artifact. The poison that was soaked in them was a very famous poison in the Central Plains. The profound meaning of the wind family could increase the speed of the needles to the extreme. Unless one was wearing a holy grade armor, the needles could be pierced through easily. Once the needles pierced into a warrior's body, the warrior would be paralyzed for 1 second and die after another. The cage of vines could stop the warrior from running away. The profound meaning of the wind family could increase the speed of the needles. Once the speed reached a horrifying level, the force of the attack would be impressive. The needles covered every inch of the cage. There was no way to dodge, and the warrior could only wait for death. This was the most powerful ability Song-Chi had. Once, with this skill, he killed a human sovereign realm warrior and more than a dozen noble lord realm warriors from the palace of Blue Lions. Once, the average human sovereign realm warriors at the northeast of the Central Plains were struck with terror. I am doomed. Hua felt hopeless. Unless he teleported away now, he would definitely die in the next second. Chapter 445. If he could teleport away, he might have another chance to attack. But nobody could predict the outcome. If he couldn't teleport away, he would die immediately. Go to hell. Let's die together. Hua made up his mind in an instant. He bellowed and his body was on fire. A surge of qi and energy that frightened Song Qi spread out from his body. Lunatic, lunatic. Song Qi's pupils contracted as he shouted in rage. Terror was written all over his face. Hua Qi dashed away in a blur and stepped back as fast as he could. At the same time, he released many vines in front of him. The ancient races had many secret skills. There was one that many ancient races knew, and it was feared by the human race. The human race once suffered heavy losses. That was the skill of self-destruction. By burning one's own fate wheel or bead of life, the energy inside would burst out, creating a horrifying force that could tear apart all living beings nearby. Song Qi wouldn't mind if it were a noble Lord Realm warrior blowing himself up. But a human sovereign realm warrior would be horrifying. How many treasures would a human sovereign realm warrior need? How much energy would be contained in the bead of life of a human sovereign realm warrior? Unimaginable. Song Qi called Hua a lunatic, because after Hua's self-destruction, Song Qi might not be able to survive. But at the very least, all the stellar race nearby would die. None of them could survive. Run. At the same time, Yi Cha, who was in a mountain in the distance, was taken aback. He knew the skill of self-destruction as well. He knew how horrifying a human sovereign realm warrior could be. Once, when the Cyan Phoenix race was destroyed, many powerful warriors of his race and the Mammoth race did the same. Within a radius of 30 miles, not even a blade of grass could survive. Whoosh! Yi Cha carried Lu Li and retreated as fast as he could. Suddenly, there came a ray of light in the distance. It was like the explosion of the sun. People could see it from a radius of more than 3,000 miles. Boom! Then came a deafening noise. At that moment, Lu Li and Yi Cha's eardrums were torn. They felt a sharp pain. They couldn't hear anything and their heads were buzzing. Here we go. Yi Cha reacted quickly. Disregarding the pain in his eardrums, he grabbed Lu Li and rushed to a ravine ahead, pressing Lu Li under him. Boom, 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 a surge of shockwaves spread out. The hill behind Yi Cha and Lu Li was leveled to the ground, and the ground was scraped open. Even though Lu Li and Yi Jie were crouching in the ravine, they were still swept up and tumbled in midair. Their bodies were blown dozens of miles away. Bang bang! In the end, the two of them were smashed into a large mountain. Both of them were covered in blood, and their skin was scratched in many places. Yi Jie's back was a bloody mess. Lu Li sat in a daze for a while and shook his head to get rid of the dust on his head. He wiped his face and looked back, but he was dumbfounded. What he saw was a huge basin, and it was extremely smooth. There were originally many mountains in the vicinity, but they were all gone now. There were no trees, no weeds, no rivers, only bare ground. Hiss, hiss. He took a few breaths of cold air. Was the self-destruction of a human emperor so terrifying? Fortunately, they were 100 miles away from the center of the explosion. Otherwise, the two of them would have been minced into pieces. Squeak, squeak, little White crawled out from Lu Li's sleeve. It was covered in dust as well. It shook its fur and looked around curiously. Let's go. Yi Jie was covered in dust. He took a healing pellet, grabbed Lu Li, and dashed toward the center of the explosion, not caring about the wound on his back. Lu Li came back to his senses. Hua must be dead, but he didn't know if Song Qi was alive or not. If he was, this was the best chance. They must kill him at once. If Song Qi escaped, they would be letting the tiger back to the mountain. Okay. Lu Li was cheered up. This was the best situation. He must kill Song Qi this time. They rushed forward while Yi Jie used psychic power to check for Song-Chi. Even Yi Jie was shocked by the sight. Broken limbs were everywhere and blood was raining down. Needless to say, all the stellar race on the ground were torn into pieces. None of them survived. Yi Jie sped up. He used psychic power to check and soon reached the center of the explosion. But he couldn't find Song-Chi. Let's split up. Lu Li was getting impatient. Song-Chi must be badly injured even if he was not dead. This was a chance that could not be missed. Lu Li released his fate wheel and flew to the left and right with Yi Jie. Yi Jie was not worried. After all, even if Song-Chi could survive the explosion, he couldn't kill Lu Li. Lu Li flew to the right. Without psychic power, he had to rely on his eyes. It was easy to find Song-Chi. He just had to see if there was an intact body. The stellar race was weak, and they couldn't leave an intact body. Boom, boom. Lu Li had just flown for several miles when he heard some noises from Yi Jie. A glint of coldness rose in Lu Li's eyes. He flew over on his fate wheel as fast as he could. He is not dead yet? When he was closer, he saw that Yi Jie was attacking the ground. There was a man on the ground surrounded by layers of vines, blocking Yi Jie's attacks. More vines were coming out, entangling with each other to form a layer of defense, wrapping Song-Chi up. Lu Li exclaimed to himself. Song-Chi was so strong that he could survive such an explosion. Saint Lord, don't come over. Song-Chi is badly injured. I can kill him alone. Yi Jie roared angrily and released space, splitting power Upanishad. Giant gold claws slapped down and broke the vines layer by layer. Lu Li was relieved. The vines were coming out slowly. Yi Jie's profound meaning could tear the vines apart. It wouldn't be long before he could tear Song-Chi apart. You. A weak voice came from within the vine, and then an invisible ripple radiated out and froze Yi Jie in midair. Whoosh! Following that, dozens of vines shot out frantically, wrapped around Yi Jie and pulled him down. Song-Chi sneered again. You are only at the noble lord realm and you dare to talk big. I can kill you easily even if I have to die. Yi Jie. Lu Li was taken aback. The vines could suck away life energy. If Lu Li didn't do anything, Yi Jie would turn into a mummy soon. Powerful. Human sovereign realm warriors are too powerful. Lu Li murmured in shock. He could tell from Song-Chi's voice that he was badly injured. But Lu Li didn't expect that Song-Chi could take down Yi Jie. Let's do it. He could not watch Yi Jie die without saving him. What was more, if he couldn't kill Song-Chi this time, he wouldn't have another chance. He had to fight to the death. Whoosh! Lu Li released burning blood skill. A huge saber appeared in his hand and his fate wheel spun. Then, he generated clones. There were 66 of them at once. Lu Li dashed down. He didn't know if clones would be of any use at the moment. But he wanted to fight with all his strength, even if it meant he would be smashed to pieces. Ha, 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 you don't want to go to heaven. Instead, you break into hell. Chapter 446. Lu Li was entangled by the vines but he did not fight back. He could tell that some kind of energy was slipping away from him as the vines glowed in purple. He was getting weaker as well. Even so, he did not make a move. He knew that he only had one chance. If he missed it, both he and Yi Cha would die. Human sovereign realm warriors had force field. Once it was released, Lu Li would not be able to move. Song-Chi must be very weak at the moment, so the force field was deactivated. Lu Li was dragged into the vines quickly. This was a chance for him. Lu Li's eyes grew colder. Under the threat of life and death, his muscles were trembling. Yi Cha checked with psychic power. He seemed to have understood Lu Li's intention. Yi Cha's body suddenly twisted. 2 golden hooks appeared in her hands, and she slashed at the vines. Crack! Maybe it was because Song-Chi was too weak that the vines were not as sturdy, or maybe the golden hooks were too strong. Either way, several vines were cut off. Go to hell! Yi Jie roared. Her 2 hooks swung towards Song-Chi's body, cutting down the vines one by one. Song-Chi snorted. He used psychic power to check on Lu Li. He took out some vines and shot them toward Yi Cha's back quietly. They entangled Yi Cha's legs and hands so that he could not move. Okay, now is the time. Lu Li's eyes glowed. Yi Cha had created a chance for him. Lu Li was pulled down and was only 30 feet away from Song-Chi. Even though there were 7 or 8 layers of vines between them, Lu Li was confident. Blood Claw! He roared, and this roar used the Dragon Roar Divine skill. It shook the heavens and the earth, causing Song-Chi, who was in the vine, to spit out blood. Song-Chi was seriously injured. He was covered in blood. One of his legs and one of his hands were gone. His bones were exposed in many places. He was sitting on the ground with his legs crossed, unable to move. But as long as he was alive, he was still a human sovereign realm warrior. Song-Chi wanted to kill Yi Cha as soon as possible. However, Lu Li's roar made his blood boil. Blood was coming out from many places and his ears were ringing. He suddenly turned to Lu Li and used psychic power to check. He sensed a silver claw. Those claws were so sharp that they turned the vines into powder with a casual sweep. They were as sharp as Hua after he burned his origin blood. Bang bang bang, Lu Li used the speed profound meaning. His fate wheel was entangled and he could not move at all. He could reach the peak of the imperishable realm just by relying on the speed truth. He was only 3 to 4 meters away from Song-Chi. The vines in front of him could not stop him for even a moment, so in just a breath's time, he had already rushed in front of Song-Chi. Song-Chi's soul shuddered when he saw a silver claw rapidly enlarging in front of him. He knew very well that if he was hit by the claw, his head would instantly explode. At the moment of life and death, Song-Chi's potential was stimulated. Even if he was seriously injured and on the verge of death, one should not forget that he was the human emperor. How fast was the reaction speed of a human emperor? When Lu Li's claw was only 1 foot away from Song-Chi's face, Song-Chi activated his force field. An invisible ripple spread out, and the entire space froze once again. Blood came out from Song-Chi's mouth. Forcefully activating force field twice had worsened his injuries. sh*t, sh*t, sh*t. Lu Li was almost face to face with Song-Chi, who was sitting with his legs crossed. He could even see the mockery and killing intent in Song-Chi's eyes. He was only 1 foot away from killing Song-Chi. All his previous efforts would have been in vain. The consequence of all his previous efforts being in vain was that he would be doomed eternally. He would die a tragic death. Bastard, because of you, the Song family was wiped out by the Palace of Blue Lions. My family, my wife, and my children were all killed. Today, I am going to avenge them. I am going to torture you and make you suffer. I will torture you for 7 days and 7 nights before I let you die. The ring on Song-Chi's other hand that was covered in blood glowed as a poisonous needle appeared. This needle was different from the one Lu Li used to deal with Hua Qi. Those needles had a black glare while this one had a colorful glow. Clearly it was poisonous. This poison is called Immortals Perish. Not even immortals can save you. This poison will torture you for 7 days and 7 nights. In the end, you will watch your body fester and rot bit by bit. Not even immortals can save you. Song-Chi's mouth was still bleeding. It was difficult for him to speak, but he didn't mind. He wanted to make Lu Li afraid, desperate, and in so much pain that he would rather die. Whoosh! Right at that moment, Lu Li's sleeve trembled. Then a ray of white light flew out and shot toward Song-Chi's neck. Everything in the force field was silent and space was frozen. How come Little White was not affected? Lu Li's eyes glowed as he was overjoyed. Little White was amazing. Many inhibition formations were ineffective against it. Now, not even force field could do anything to it. What is that? Song-Chi was so close that he couldn't see clearly. All he saw was a flash of white light and a sharp pain on his neck. Then he felt his head was going to be separated. Good! Luli was overjoyed. In the distance, Yi-Cha was overjoyed. However, before the smiles on their faces could spread out, they noticed that Song-Chi moved his hand before he died. Then the colorful needle pierced through the sky and went into Luli's neck. Ah! Luli was petrified. He wanted to laugh, but his mouth froze. The joy in his eyes faded away and was replaced by endless fear. He could clearly sense that an invisible force was spreading out from the needle. In the time for one breath, the force had spread to every inch of his bones and muscles. Then, he felt there were 10,000 bugs hiding in his body, gnawing at his flesh and bones. The pain was more horrifying than what he suffered at the wicked sorcery mountain. He rolled around on the ground and screamed in pain. Saint Lord! Song-Chi's neck was bitten off by Little White. He was dead. The vines no longer glowed purple. Yi-Cha broke through the vines and rushed over. Seeing that Luli's skin had become colorful, Yi-Cha became solemn. He shouted, "It really is one of the top 10 poisons of the Central Plains, the immortals perish. No. I don't think even a god can save him." There were 10 poisons of the Central Plains that had no cure. It was well known at the Central Plains. It was said that there was only one person that could cure it, the abbot of the great Buddhist temple. The thing was, the poison would take effect in 7 days. Luli's body would fester and corrode, leaving only a skeleton. How far could Yi-Cha take Luli with him in 7 days? They would still be at the northern Central Plains even if they teleported continuously. Bang! Yi-Cha knocked Luli out in case he had a mental breakdown due to the pain. Yi-Cha took Song-Chi's interspatial ring, carried Luli in his arms and ran towards the exit with Little White that was roaring anxiously. They could not go to the great Buddhist temple in 7 days, but they could go to the Pavilion of Delicacy. Chapter 447. The Mountain of Stellar Stars was far away from the territory of the Yellow Goblin race. Last time, it took Yi-Cha 2 days to get there. This time, it only took him a day and a half, which was a testament to his eagerness. Going to the Pavilion of Delicacy was Luli's only chance. For the Cyan Phoenix race, Luli was their only chance. Otherwise, the Cyan Phoenix race and the Mammoth race would never have the chance to fight their way back to the Central Plains and take back their ancestral land. Half a volume of Heaven Augury spell had given the Cyan Phoenix race and the Mammoth race a chance to escape. The 2 races admired the ancestor that knew the Heaven Augury spell very much. Naturally, they trusted the stone tablet he left behind. Therefore, Luli could not die. Luli woke up several times during the day. Every time, he could not bear the pain. Yi-Cha felt sorry for him. He had to knock Luli out many times in case he had a mental breakdown due to the pain. Even though he had passed out, Luli was still trembling. His face was twisted in pain as if he was suffering from indescribable pain. Yi-Cha was relieved to see the exit in the distance. They could teleport to the Cloud City in 2 days based on their current speed. Then, after more than a dozen teleportations, they would arrive at the City of Delicacy in 3 days at most. Yi-Cha was so powerful that even though there were Yellow Goblin race on the ground, they didn't dare to get closer. On the way, they ran into some powerful warriors of other races. But they were going back the way they came. Those races all knew Yi-Cha and thought he was an honored guest of the Stellar race, so they didn't stop him. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Yi-Cha arrived at the exit. This place had been occupied by the Hag race. The people on the ground were all warriors of the Hag race. Whoosh! 2 people flew out from the mountain. One of them was Chi-Kur, the queen of the Hag race, and the other was a beautiful lady in white. The lady was delighted to see Yi-Cha and Luli flying over. But when she saw them clearly, her expressions changed. Luli. Looking at Luli, whose skin had become colorful, his muscles trembling, and his face twisted in pain, tears welled up in by Chioshua's eyes. She flew over quickly and shouted from the distance, "What is wrong with him? Is he hurt? Is it serious?" Yicha didn't have time to waste with Bai Chioshua. He explained while flying with Luli, "Hua and Songqi are dead. Saint Lord is poisoned by the immortals perish. I have to take him to the Pavilion of Delicacy. Hua is dead." Chiker was taken aback. She didn't know much about Luli's plan. She found it hard to believe. After all, Luli was the uncrowned king of the deserted world. Yicha paid no attention to them. To him, Luli was the most important. He flew down with Luli and was about to reach the exit of the quagmire. Immortals perish. One of the top 10 poisons of the Central Plains? Chiker suddenly reacted. Looking at Autumn Snow's pale face, she hurried to shout, "Hold on. You can't find anyone else to cure this poison. I'm sure the people of the Pavilion of Delicacy can't do it either." Yicha paused, turning around and looking at Chiker. "What did you say?" Chikar thought for a while and said, "Actually, there is no antidote for this poison. Once, a clan leader of a big tribe was poisoned by this poison. He searched the entire Central Plains but couldn't find anyone who could cure him. Eventually, an elder of our Yiksha clan cured him. However, the elder of our Yiksha clan died in the end." Yicha's eyes glowed with joy. He looked at Chiker and said, "So, the Yiksha race can cure him." Bai Chioshua was overjoyed as well. She wiped off her tears, flew over and asked, "Chiker, help Luli." "I can't." Chiker shook her head, looked at Bai Chioshua and said, "Not only me, but all the Yiksha race can't. The only one who can do it is you. Only those of the enchantment can cure him. But if you are unlucky, you will die." Boom. Bai Chioshua felt she was struck by a bolt from the blue. Luli was poisoned and she was the only one who could cure him? But she might die. In other words, either Luli or she would die. Bai Chioshua had a good temperament, but she was just a teenage girl after all. It was natural for her to be afraid of death. At this moment, she was scared out of instinct. She reacted quickly. After the time for a few breaths, she asked, "Are you sure I can cure him?" "How?" Yicha asked, "Chiker, tell me what is going on." As a matter of fact, according to our records, there is no cure for this poison. Chiker sighed and said, "This is not an average poison. It is a voodoo poison that originated from the voodoo land of the south. The only ones that can cure it are the powerful warriors of the voodoo land of the south. There are dead poisons and living poisons. Dead poisons are easy to cure, but living poisons are almost impossible. Immortals perish is a living poison. Once it enters the human body, it will disperse into every muscle and blood and merge with the body. According to our records, not even the best elixir in the world can cure this poison. This poison can divide and grow. After killing one batch, another batch will be born. There is no way to eradicate it. The only cure is to suck out the poison and let someone else be poisoned. The enchantment has the ability to transfer the poison. So, it is not a cure but a transfer of the poison. There is another ability of the enchantment. You should know that there are 3 levels of the enchantment. The first level is called enchantment, the second is enchantment, and the third is awe and demons. If you can reach the 3rd level, you will not be afraid of demons and gods. You will be able to disperse the poison and you can even use it to enhance your abilities. So, to save Luli, we have to transfer the poison in his body to you. Then, we can freeze her and put her into a state of suspended animation. The poison will be frozen as well. But your soul will not be restricted and you can learn the enchantment on your own. Of course, the poison will not be completely frozen. It will spread slowly and it will last for about 100 years. If you cannot learn the third level of the enchantment in 100 years, you will be like that patriarch of our race, sleeping forever. Chiker said nothing after her explanation, waiting for Bai Qiushue and Yi Cha's decision. Yi Cha's eyes flickered. He didn't know what to say. He knew that even the Pavilion of Delicacy wouldn't be able to save Lu Li. Lu Li and Jiang Qiling were friends, but the Pavilion of Delicacy didn't send over human sovereign realm warriors. Their attitude was clear. The poison was so strong. Even if Lu Li could be saved, he would need some elixirs. Would the Pavilion of Delicacy do that for Lu Li? Yi Cha knew that Bai Qiushue was Lu Li's beloved. If he instigated Bai Qiushue to do this, Lu Li would tear him apart when he woke up. This Chiker is suspicious as well. Yi Cha was a shrewd man. He looked into Chiker's eyes as if he could see what she was thinking. Chiker turned her head away with a guilty conscience. Bai Qiushue was the goddess of the hag race, the hope of the hag race, just like how Lu Li was the hope of the Cyan Phoenix race. If so, why would Chiker tell them the solution? Wasn't this pushing their goddess into a pit of fire? It had been so many years since there was a successor that could cultivate the enchantment. Why would Chiker want to harm Bai Qiushue? There must be something wrong. Yi Cha believed that Chiker must have her own plan. Maybe she wanted to force Bai Qiushue into a dead end so that she could reach the third level of the enchantment in 100 years. She would either succeed or die trying. Only by reaching the third level of the enchantment could Bai Qiushue's abilities soar and she could lead the hag race to greater heights. Chapter 448. Lu Li could not die. Song Qi and Hua were dead and the deserted world was in their hands. Lu Li and the Bai family would rise with the deserted world. Lu Li was the man she loved the most. How could she watch him die without doing anything? She could transfer the poison to Bai Qiushue, and she could have 100 years to cure it. Also, Lu Li would find a way to cure her. Therefore, to save Lu Li, Bai Qiushue did not have to think too much. She soon figured it out. She hesitated for the time for one incense stick to burn because she was afraid out of instinct. No matter how calm she was still a budding girl. Whether she could survive or not, she would be frozen in the ice for decades. She would not be able to move, but her soul could. In other words, she would become a vegetable, a fake dead person. She would live alone for decades. Everyone would be afraid. Humans were selfish. No matter how good the slogan was, when it happened to them, they would hesitate and reject it out of instinct. Therefore, Yi Cha was impressed and respected that Bai Qiushue could say that she would save Lu Li in the time for half an incense stick to burn. If Yi Cha were in her shoes, he would hesitate as well. He would hesitate for a longer time even though he would still choose to save Lu Li in the end. Alas, Chiker sighed. She knelt on one knee, looked at Bai Qiushue and said, "Goddess, please forgive me. Actually, I shouldn't have told you about the detoxification method. But it is hard to find someone who can master the enchantment. Chiker does not want to miss this chance. After being frozen, Goddess will not be disturbed by worldly affairs. Her will to survive will be strengthened, and the chances of her reaching the third level of the enchantment will be increased. Only when you reach the third level can you lead the hag race to glory. Chiker is guilty. If you fail, I will follow you." Yi Cha was right about Chiker's little trick. Yi Cha thought about it and said coldly, "Chiker, if young master's poison cannot be cured and Lady Qiushue is poisoned, don't blame me for being cruel and wiping out the entire hag race." Chiker nodded and said, "That is not a problem. There is a clear record in our ancestral record. Goddess and clan leader Yi, you can check at will. Go." Bai Qiushue didn't waste any more time. As long as she could cure Lu Li and as long as she could reach the third level of the enchantment, she didn't care about anything else. They kept flying toward the royal division of the Yiksha race. It would take some time to get to the royal division of the Yiksha race. On the way, Chikar used a secret method to send messages back and asked her tribesmen to prepare some things. 2 days later, they arrived at the Yaksha tribe's royal headquarters. The Yaksha tribe's elder handed over a scroll of a secret technique. This secret technique was recorded on a yellowing animal skin. It was obvious that it had been around for a long time. This thing could not be fake. Yi Cha knew that it was real at a glance. Yi Jie and Autumn Snow both understood the ancient language. After checking that there were no problems, Autumn Snow asked, "Where do we detoxify?" On the way, Luli woke up for several times. But every time, he was in pain. Bai Qiushua's heart was broken. If it wasn't for the fact that she had to return to the Yaksha clan's royal clan to detoxify the poison, Autumn Snow would have already started to think of ways to transfer the poison to the nearby Sky Dragon Snow Mountain. Chikar pointed to the north and said, "There is a snow mountain over there. After we detoxify the poison, we must freeze you with a secret skill. Otherwise, once the poison spreads out, you will die in 7 days as well." Chikar took out a yellowing animal skin, handed it to Bai Qiushua and said, "Goddess, this is the way to transfer the poison. Take a look. There are also notes on the enchantment written by our ancestors. You must memorize them all. Once you are frozen, you will never wake up unless you can master the 3rd level of the enchantment." After a pause, Chikar continued, "Goddess, don't worry and study the enchantment. We will use a special skill to transfer energy into your body to make sure that your body will not die. As long as you can break out from the ice, your body will be as young and beautiful as it is right now." Autumn Snow nodded. She had made up her mind a long time ago. Just like Luli, nothing could change her mind once she had made up her mind. She flipped through the scroll quickly and her cheeks turned red. After a while, she asked in a low voice, "Is this the only way to suck the poison out?" Chikar nodded. She didn't say much since Yi Cha was here. Bai Qiushua looked at Luli with a blushed face and went back to reading. "It's about time. Let's go to the snow mountain." After a while, Bai Qiushua waved her hand and said, "Is everything ready?" "Yes." Chikar nodded and said, "Goddess, this is the most important thing for the hag race. I will not make any mistakes." Bai Qiushua looked at Yi Cha and flew toward the snow mountain. Chikar, Yi Cha and the patriarchs of the hag race went after her. Dozens of flying hags flew up as well. 30 miles to the north, they saw a huge mountain that pierced through the clouds. They flew to the peak. There were many hags guarding the mountain. There was a castle built on the peak which seemed to be newly built. "Clan leader Yi, leave Lord Lu to me." Standing outside the castle, Chikar looked at Yi Cha and added, "You stay outside. It is not convenient." Yi Cha recalled Bai Qiushua's blushing face. He gave Chikar a threatening look and said, "Chikar, I hope you don't lie to me. You know the consequences." Chikar nodded and walked in with Luli in her arms. Bai Qiushua followed them in quickly. The patriarch of the hag race was the last to close the gate of the castle. Cold. As soon as they entered the castle, a gust of cold air came over them. Even at her realm, Bai Qiushua shivered. Chikar explained, "There is a formation in the castle that can gather the cold air in the snow mountain. Otherwise, it would not be able to form a 10,000-year-old glacier to freeze you up." The castle was not large. There was only a hall and a room. The patriarch opened the room, and it was a world of ice. The walls inside were frozen, and a large bed was also frozen, emitting a dense cold air. Chikar put Luli down on the bed and fed him 2 pellets. Then she said to Bai Qiushua, "Holy lady, I have given young Master Lu some special pellets. He will react later, but he will not wake up. You just have to follow the instructions. You can leave the rest to us. If you are afraid, we can stay here with you." "No. You stay outside. I will call you when I am ready." It was freezing cold in the room. Bai Qiushua's face was getting redder and redder. She didn't have to suck the venom through her mouth, but, there. She had to use the enchantment to suck all the venom into her body when they were having sex. Alas, Bai Qiushue was a bit disappointed. Girls usually cared about their first time. She had imagined that she would be in a romantic setting and being loved by Luli. She didn't expect that it would be in such an environment. What was more, Luli didn't know about it. She had to take the initiative. More importantly, after this, she would fall into a long sleep. She would never be able to open her eyes again. She couldn't see this beautiful world. By Xiaoshuang, Madame Yen and the Bai family. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.